Alright, so today we are going to carry on with where we left off on our list. I'm hoping we can get to Violet and the Fruits in today as well. We'll spend the first half of the stream just finishing off with Nigel and Fiona. There's definitely a lot to fill in with them, and we had some good chats about them last stream. And then we'll get Violet and the Fruits in, so exciting times. And on Friday, it's next stream will be Friday, I'm thinking we could carry on with Main Quest 2 Scene 5 and get that done. So this might be the last stream that we work on this character arc big list, of course. You know, we'll go back to it. It'll be forever with us. We'll always be using this sheet to add NPCs or make adjustments as necessary if we feel so. Same with the mega list. But I think today will probably be the last stream we do it all stream. So we'll make it our goal to get as much juicy info as possible in here about the characters and have really cool chats. And I think the last stream we had was really useful. Like, we talked so much and we had so many cool ideas, so I'm expecting the same today and going into Friday, and when we carry on with the dialogue, making it perfect, because not only are we going to finish the final scene of Main Quest 2 off next stream, we'll look over the previous scenes as well and make sure that Nigel and Fiona and Violet are consistent with this all this internal stuff and conflict going on within them. There'll definitely need to be some little adjustments, I'll say, because there's new stuff that we're going to be finding out about them today, as we did last stream as well. So I think it will only make the scenes and the dialogue of as even stronger and make the story even more interesting of what we've got for Main Quest 1 and 2 so far. Hi Zephyrus, how you doing? It's so good to see you. I hope you're having a good Wednesday. For Fiona's past, what do you think about changing "he told me he needed me" to something like "he had a breakdown because he was so worried about me, he didn't know what he'd do without me"? Sounds great. I had a little bit of a reword of it slightly, actually. Just a touch, not much though. But I think that your description sounds better and it definitely gives us more. So we'll get that in too. We want to really get it all out. We want to go all out in this description because it'll just help us understand the characters even more. So we'll do that. There's some really interesting stuff I've been thinking about since the last stream that I'm going to bring up today as well. And we'll have a chat about it, and we'll fill in the rest of this list for both Fiona and for Nigel, and we'll think about how we can potentially raise the stakes as well for both. But yeah, we'll spend the first half of the stream doing that, and I think we understand them a bit better now, so it'll be a bit easier to get in what we need. Last stream it was more about deciding what they were going to be like as characters, but I think we're starting to get to the root of them now, and then we'll get Violet and the Fruits in, and hopefully, all going well, we can talk about them as well today. Also, just as a quick little update, I have updated the website. It needed an update because the new version of WordPress came out, and some of the old plugins needed updating as well, so it might have been running a little bit on the slower side. I do have to update the PHP version or something, so it might not be 100% perfect, but it's a bit better. And I've added a devlog section to the site that will take you to the YouTube, because I want more people to be aware of the fact that I do have every single stream. I've redone the thumbnails as well, put more focus on what we do in each stream, or at least something that we talk about quite a bit. And on this section I've put latest images and trailer and the build number as well, because some folks looking at the website for the first time might assume that this is how the game, looks and will always look, but it is an early pre-alpha build and makes people aware that there's changes on the horizon potentially. Like, for example, these screenshots need updating with the taller sprites. Haven't yet done that. But that is like my next task, to do all that, so that will be done shortly. 100% need to do that before the Steam page release as well. And what else? Oh yes, the other thing is, which I briefly mentioned last week, we are reopening the playable character forms again this month, but there will be limited slots and an increased rank drop requirement for those, just because they're so valuable now, those playable character slots. Right, and that's it. We'll cross that off for now. And of course, if you're not subbed to me on the YouTube yet, make sure you are, to keep updated with the game. Okay, so cross that off now. When you say dialogue, it sounds like you're saying Rito from Doctor Who. Probably my accent, isn't it? I have a very unique speaking voice down as a Zephyrus. Alright, so let's get in what Zexam says, because it's like miles better than how it is currently. So we have, let's read it out. Let's zoom in a little bit more as well so we can get a better view of it. There we go. I think you guys can see that better now. Okay, so Fiona's past. We very roughly wrote this out last stream because we decided what Fiona's all about. It's pretty clear she's an adventurer and loves exploring, but because of her youth and because of all the goings on and all the threats of the forest, this arc makes a lot of sense for her. And why have I done that? There we go, it's back as it should be. So, all my life, the village elders of Lakeville have told me I have to stay in the village no matter what because I'm a child. They repeat over and over again that I must never go out into the forest, but that doesn't stop me. It only makes me more keen. I don't know if keen's the best word here. We could use like a descriptive word that is a bit more rebellious, I suppose. One night after being out all day, I came back to find Nigel a nervous wreck. He was the worst I'd ever seen him. I tried to reassure him, but it didn't help. He told me that he needed me, and it made me feel guilty about leaving the village to explore. And that leads on to her false belief that she feels that she's trapped and everything's keeping her here. She has to give up her love of exploring to run the inn, and Nigel also needs her here. So we're gonna just expand on this a bit. And hi Van, how are you doing today? It's awesome to see you. I hope work's being nicer to you today. I'm guessing it isn't, but thank you so much for lurking, for coming by as always. You're the best. And I'm fine. I had almost a mental breakdown over my game, as Zephyrus says. I found out there's at least 2 tower defense games being made and uploaded to Steam every day, so I'm remaking my game to something else. Very interesting that, you know. This is make up your own mind totally. It's always up to you what you want to do, but I think do the genre you're most passionate about, the genre that just gets you excited every morning, rather than what you feel the Steam page or, you know, the state, the trends of the gaming industry are. I only feel that way because I think excitement and passion is what drives you to complete a project, especially one that's huge like this. The only reason I'm able to stick with this is just because I'm really passionate about this sort of thing. I don't even see it as a job or a chore. This is like a hobby that I'd want to do no matter what. So I know it can be tricky because you kind of think, well, it's no good doing what I'm passionate about if it's not going to sell or if it's too saturated. So I totally get that. But that's just the way the industry is now, especially Steam in recent years. There's just so much on there now. It's not like it was years ago when it was like few and far between and it was hard to get on Steam. Yeah. You can, I think, get the balance of working on a genre and a game you're extremely passionate about, but do something with your game that gives it a unique edge that is going to make it stand out amongst the masses and the rest of the games. Because it is quite a lot, isn't it, every day getting that many. But if you can make yours unique and different and stand out, you know, that's how you're going to get noticed. I mean, look at all the farming simulator games out there, right? It's absolutely loads, I'm guessing, but certain ones kind of become a hit because they just stand out amongst the crowd. And so I hadn't seen your change. I think your version works perfectly well. The main reason I suggested the changes to make it more ambiguous if Nigel was being manipulated or if it was poor communication. Yeah, I still think yours is more descriptive though, Zexy, although I did add a little bit of extra. I think we can push on it even more because we didn't have this bit last time. That it was the worst she'd ever seen. I mean, I think I can imagine it is a bit manipulative from what Nigel's doing here, and it is kind of sad for Fiona, and that's the way for us to like Fiona, I guess, because we see her in this situation where she's torn. But Nigel also has to be likeable too, and I'd say that Nigel means no harm, and he's probably not even aware that he's being manipulative or guilt trippy. He's just got PTSD and he's scared, and that's like heartbreaking. So Nigel, we want to give him a big hug. That's kind of what we want to do. It's that puppy dog that we just want to protect. Okay, so and I'm doing okay. It's a little chilly today, but I got work out in trying to get some projects done. Oh, I need to start working out in the new year. That's my spring goal. Once I've had all my chocolate sack, I'll probably do it a bit more. I did start a bit last year, but I stopped. It's no good now while I've got a massive chocolate sack. And chilly. I was cold as well. I mean, look at me, I'm just wearing a vest. But I've got really warm all of a sudden, strangely. Though maybe keen could be just fuels my curiosity about what's actually... Oh, good point, Zexy, because now you've said that, fuels my curiosity about what's out there. It makes me think, which was something I was going to bring up today as well, what is the reason behind Fiona's love for exploring? You know, it can't just be exploring for the sake of exploring, right? There's got to be something that's really making her so desperate. I mean, it could just be simply a case of forbidden fruit, and because everybody's telling her not to do it, she just wants to do it. You know, but it could go even deeper than that. Maybe there is literally something there that she just can't resist. We do know that she's got Violet trapped in a cabin, so that could be linked, but that could just be another layer on top of the reason she goes out in the first place. And there's also linking her to the fruits too, and there's a couple of things that we're going to add here, particularly this section here, and we're going to make it all link together. So it's all cohesive, and Fiona makes sense because there's a few things we know about her so far, other than the fact that she left the inn and disappeared into the forest. We also know that she's got, like we say, Violet trapped in a cabin. We know that she wants Violet sacrificed to the fruits. And we have like an idea of why she wants to do that, which we'll also mention in a bit and link into this somehow. Okay, so let's get this in then. So it just sounds more exciting, doesn't it, like that? It just fuels my curiosity, and I can't spell even more. Oh, well, not even more, about what's actually out there, because that actually out there part makes me think, you know, that's what's driving her obsession with exploring. There's something is like really, you know, it'd be interesting to think why she loves it so much. Okay, and hi Badger, how you doing? Wonderlust indeed. She is that character. She is that one so far. Made it part of my life workouts a body maintenance. I think it's sensible. It's no good like following your passions but being extremely unhealthy, because then you'll die before your passions come to life. That's a bit morbid to say, but it's kind of true. So you gotta look after yourself. Which is why I'm going to try and do that too. As you get older, you gotta. Okay, now where are we? Keen is on fleek. Yeah, Keen was okay. It was the first one that came into my head, but then I thought it's not strong enough of a word. It doesn't like convince me that Fiona's like deeply passionate about exploring, so I like the new change more. Okay, so he didn't know what he'd do without me. Okay, so that's an interesting point, but what I think I'm going to do is put that in the Nigel section, maybe. You know, under like his fears, we can have it as you know, I don't know what I'd do without my sister. So yeah, we might save that bit for that actually. So because when we get deep into Nigel's thoughts and feelings, we can plop them in here. Okay, so it is ironic that she feels trapped, and when she has a moment of freedom, she uses it to trap Violet. It is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm loving that you're spotting all these things, and these sort of things could get brought up, you know, by us as the hero. We could be like, you know, considering you know, and that could make Fiona realise and make her look at herself. But there's a lot of irony going on here, even with Carol and her relationship and dynamic with Violet. She bullies Violet, and it's like, but Carol, you felt like that person too once, like you were excluded from society, so you should understand how Violet feels, not be the bully. So yeah, there's a lot of learning these characters have to do, that's for sure. Lethan, thank you so much for that follow. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. Alright, so and Badger, thank you as well for the follow. It's lovely to meet you all. Just so you know, folks, I mean, pretty obvious from what we've got on this dot, but this is a big character arcs list. Every NPC in our game is going to go in here, and it's going to this formula here that we're following is going to help us shape their character arc and how they transform as a character throughout the journey. Because they'll always start with a false belief that's been formed from their backstory that they will come to realise is false over the course of the story. That's kind of like the gist of character arcs. They always have to transform in some way to this, like this kind of person at the end that's highlighted here. But yeah, not every character has to have a character arc, like Zexy said last stream. Some characters have flat character arcs where they don't transform, and their purpose in the story is for another reason rather than transform them themselves. But I personally do have a love for characters that have a character arc. I feel like watching that transformation is especially over the course of an episodic saga, which is what this is, seeing how they were in episode 1 to potentially what they're going to become later is, especially for someone like Carol who's going to be in all the episodes, is quite fascinating. Nigel and his sister, however, are going to be primarily episode 1 characters, though if they do survive the episode and don't get killed off, then they might make an appearance in a future episode, like briefly. Okay, so let's get to it then. Something interesting. I had so many thoughts going through my head about this brother and sister this morning, and I hope I don't forget them all. Okay, so the first one, it just come to mind. I think Nigel should be 29 years old. The reason why, I've got a very good reason for why I think he should be 29 years old. The war was 17 years ago, the war between the humans and the reptiles. That would have made Nigel 12 years old at the time, the same old age as what his sister is now. So because when Nigel was in the war, he was a coward, right? This is the time when his PTSD started, because he was in the middle of all that chaos, but he was scared, so he probably hid, and he was hopeless. It's what's formed, it was the root of all his fears, that event was. And 12 years old, it's very young, you know, understandable that he'd be scared. But it would also kind of put the idea into his head that because he was like that at 12 years old, Fiona is the same, and that's why she needs protecting so much, so she doesn't go through what he's going through right now and doesn't end up that person. But obviously that's a false way of thinking with Nigel, because Fiona's a different person. She wasn't brought up in the time of war. She's a lot more adventurous and brave. She hasn't had those experiences he did. But I think that could work out well, because I like the idea of Nigel being Fiona's age when his trauma happened as a reason for why he's so overprotective of her. And then it doesn't come from such a selfish place either. It's not all about, oh, you've got to take care of me. He's like genuinely worried about her too, because he knows what it was like for him when he was 12. Okay, so flat arcs are still arcs. Their belief is correct, but there can be self-doubts, and instead of changing internally, they change the world around them. So flat arcs and no arcs are different. All right. Just a word, guys, when you come into the stream for the first time, be friendly. So instead of changing Tony, they change the world around them. So flat arcs. And no, I'd love to read up more about flat arcs though, actually, because I wanna like see how that type of character can have an impact in a story a little bit more. So I am going to actually read about them, because I'm sure Raindrop Chronicles will have its flat arc characters too. I think it's asking a lot for every single character to have a real full character arc transformation. So I would like to definitely read. Okay. So yeah, that's something to consider, that Nigel was Fiona's age when his trauma happened, and we can get that backstory in for the past too in a sec, but let's just finish Fiona first, one at a time. Okay, so I wanted to fill this one in just because we already know what it is, because she wants us to, like, this is Fiona's motive and agenda here, and we already know it because we've already wrote it. She tells us to sacrifice Rose to the fruits. It's the second quest of the game, and Fiona gives it to us. So I'm trying to really get into the reason for why she wants that, so that it connects with all this. So my thought is, thank you, Real, for that follow. Welcome to the stream. My thought is, okay, so she wants Violet's sacrifice because she wants to protect her brother, most of all. Probably the other Lakeful villagers too, but she's mainly thinking of her brother here because Nigel needs her, right? That is what's stopping her from living the full life she wants. Because I think her desire is to explore. So I'm going to just briefly put that in. I do want to expand on that section in a sec, but I think we know the gist of her desire is that, but we can expand on it because I don't want just that as the word. It's got to have a bit more to it than that, and we can look through the mega list to see which ones we gave Fiona to remind ourselves. And the fear is that Nigel needs her here. Nigel is stopping her. My brother is stopping me. Because the fear is the obstacle in the way of the desire. So my brother needs me and can't cope without me. We can always change the wording of that if we want, but I want to get in, like, exactly what it is. So this is her character conflict. The desire and the fear has to conflict. And the fear has to stop, the desire has to be the obstacle. So that's the perfect one. She wants to explore, but she can't do that properly because of her brother. And it links to her belief as well. So I think that works well. So really the whole reason why she's given Violet to the fruits has to link strongly with Nigel, right? So for this to make sense and work. So Nigel's been bullied by the fruits, and I think Fiona might realise that Nigel can't become a person with full esteem who can live without her until he breaks free of the fruits bullying and becomes a stronger person. But he can't become that stronger person until the bullies are out the way. So that's the first thing that's come into my head. She just thinks step one, make the fruits stop bullying my brother. So she's appeasing the fruits by handing Violet over to them because they've been bullying Nigel, which I love that, the visual of that. Just imagining a group of cute, adorable little fruits bullying a grown man is absolutely silly and funny, but it's also quite sad when you know Nigel's passed as well. But I like that vision. It's funny. So yes, the fruits are bullying Nigel, and she makes a deal with them. They probably say, we'll leave your brother alone if you give us the vampire. And she jumps at the chance because she's like, finally they're going to leave my brother alone, I'll just give them what they want. But she doesn't know all the horrible other stuff they've got planned, because she just isn't questioning that. But the fruits have other motives. The fruits want Violet for the blood so they can conquer Lightfall, but they're not going to tell Fiona that, obviously. They're just thinking, if we just tell her that we're going to stop loving her brother, she'll do what, she'll give us the vampire then. And obviously we can flesh that out a bit more to find out how Fiona finds the vampire and how she knows where Rose is hiding and all that. But I'm assuming because Fiona explores a lot, she's kind of aware of the Everbloom Forest and what's going on in the forest, a bit more than the ordinary citizen of Lakefall. So she probably knows Rose's hangouts more than anybody else would, due to the fact that she doesn't listen to the village elders and goes there anyway. I think this sentence here, it only fuels my curiosity about out there. Well, what's out there is a vampire somewhere, and so hi Julian, how are you doing? So good to see you again. I love that red 13 emote. It's probably one of my favourites. It makes me sad to see red. Sad. Hope you're doing well. A happy new year, Julian, by the way. I think that's really solid, having their ages be parallel. In general, I really like when characters' events mirror each other. It can really give insight into who a character is when we see how different characters react differently to the same things. Yeah, I realised that because I was thinking of the timeline and how old Nigel is, and it just connected with me, like that if we make him the same age, it's just better than making him younger or older. It just gives that little bit more strength to the characters and their relationship, and it doesn't make Nigel a selfish, cowardly prat. It gives him an extra layer of being a caring brother as well, because what he went through, and he doesn't want that for his sister. But it is a false belief, because Fiona isn't Nigel, and I think that's a lesson a lot of people have to learn, that just because it was one way for you doesn't mean it's going to be the same for someone else. Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but what if Fiona didn't actually want to give Violet to the fruits? What if she expected Nigel to come after her and stop her because selling someone to fruit is wrong? Then Nigel was just too much of a wimp and sent the hero after her instead, and Fiona, being a child, just escalated the situation. Yeah, so that's something to consider. I'll have to think about that more, like probably when I have my brain in proper focus. But it's nice to think about, all these like reasons for why, and anything that makes something stronger and gives more purpose, I'd consider. So I'll review that and reread that in a sec. But I really like the idea that we are linking Fiona and Nigel to the fruits strongly, because I'm a big fan of when NPCs have connections to each other or parallels. So, you know, and we've already sort of paralleled Carol and Nigel as well. Carol could also weirdly parallel Fiona. Maybe this is I'm stretching it a bit here, but the fact that Fiona likes to get out there and her impatience. Carol's very similar, because Carol's impatient to get out there as well so she can find a family. She's fed up of pretending because it's slowing her down from finding a family. So she's got a similar her behaviour, her impatience sort of mirrors Fiona's more than Nigel's. Carol's definitely not a coward, but her backstory and, you know, her trauma parallels Nigel more. Hi Met, how are you doing? So good to see you. Doing well. I was praying. Oh, cool. That sounds fun. And it's just a crazy alternative. Absolutely feel free to say no. Well, it's, you know, considering different things is always cool, because you never know, could work better. But of course, whatever we go with, it'll be the one that just connects best with the events ahead and what's going on. As long as there's not plot holes and it works, it strengthens the characters more than the previous idea, then never know. Alright, so where were we? So let's get that bit in first. So I want you to So I want you to give the fruits what they want, so they stop bullying my brother. So that was the original idea. So Zexy has given another layer here, and it could. Nigel at present doesn't mention anything about the fruits to the hero. He's all Fiona. So we don't know the relationship between Nigel and the fruits right now. As I've said, we could always change the dialogue if it works, but part of me doesn't want to foreshadow the fruits too early on. If we was going to foreshadow them as early on as the inn, I'd kind of be tempted to do it in a very subtle way so we don't give away too much. I mean, after all, it would be relevant to foreshadow such a thing, because what we know from main quest 1, scene 1, the scene before we meet Nigel, is that the forest is under threat and things are coming to life, because the NPC that bumps into us that smashes Carol potentially mentions it. So it totally would actually work to kind of foreshadow a monster in the forest that's but we'll think about it what we reveal, because Nigel's not, he's going to have some sort of filter. He's not going to tell a random stranger everything about what's going on or the fact he's being bullied, but he's gonna, at the minimum, give you the quest to find his sister, because he just wants her, because he's nervous and freaking out. But we'll get in the simple stuff first that we already sure is going to happen from what's already been written, and if we want to reword it, amend it or strengthen it, we'll do that soon or later on. Oh, I think that's good. Half of Carol is mirrored by Nigel, the other half mirrored by Fiona. Haven't noticed that. Yeah, because I was thinking actually Carol's got Fiona's sass, hasn't she, and the rebellious attitude in a similar way. Her personality mirrors Fiona, but her externally she mirrors Fiona, but internally she mirrors Nigel, if that makes any sense. But I'm all for that, like having these connections between characters, not just relationship and externally, but parallels internally with their character arcs too. It's I'm all for those links, and that's kind of what I want to do. Even when we create the new NPCs of Lake Fall, like whenever we're ready to create them, making sure they have parallels and connections to our current characters in some way or another is even minor, is always cool. And even giving their truths like links as well to other people's truths, so we can stay on theme with this episode. Alright, so I think going back to Fiona's truth, I don't have to be trapped here and give up my love for exploring. I can leave Lakefall if I want to. I think the only way she could leave Lakefall is if she knew her brother had reached a point in his self-esteem that he was okay to be without his sister. I don't think Fiona would want to leave unless she knew her brother was going to be okay, because that's her fear. My brother needs me and can't cope without me. So that's Nigel's arc, isn't it? When you think about it, his arc, his truth, is to become a braver person and a more independent person who no longer has that deep fear and anxiety anymore. If anyone's got other ideas, feel free to share, but that's definitely the thing that's popping up to me right now, that he's going from a cowardly, scared, fearful guy that's extremely dependent on his sister and can't cope, to someone who's the opposite of that. Now, he probably wouldn't end up some sort of alpha male or anybody like that, because that would be a bit too unrealistic to have such a transformation, but he definitely grows as a person that's where he doesn't have that fear anymore, and he'd be okay with his sister leaving, and that would be quite empowering and nice to see Nigel grow into that sort of person. But to Fiona, she knows that he's not going to become that person if the fruits are still here, because he's getting really severely bullied by those fruits, and they are preventing his transformation into a more confident and able individual. So that's step one for Fiona. Like, if we want to give more layers to that and more complexities, totally. But at the base level, that's kind of what is going on. And it really just works well with the quests that we've got so far, and the fact that we know that Fiona hands Violet to us. So that leads to the whole scenario with the fruits where we fight them, and it just works really well. We don't have to adjust things too much, and dissatisfied with life. So that's influenced by the fear as well, and what keeps them stuck where they are. If my brother is, my brother is dependent on me, this sentence makes no sense. I'm gonna have to reword it in a sec, just getting my thoughts down. So I'm dissatisfied with my life because my brother is dependent on me, and it's stopping me from doing what I want, or from exploring. So as you see, like, you know, there's not much wording difference. Like, really what these are is what we already know, which is better. We don't want to give them an entirely irrelevant dissatisfaction, like, because I didn't eat cookies today, because you wouldn't have any influence with the things above it. So it kind of all has to flow and follow each other, which is why we don't really need to review the mega list for Fiona for these things, because we've already built it from the belief we've assigned to her. So, you know, when we look through the mega list with NPCs in the future, we might struggle finding the belief, and we might want to find their fear or dissatisfaction first, and then that will help form the belief, if that makes sense. Because sometimes it's easier with certain characters to look for a dissatisfaction first, or a motive, or a desire, or a fear before a belief. But I think for Fiona, we picked a belief first, didn't we? So it was just a little bit easier. We already had the gist of her and her character. I didn't eat cookies today because Oliver was stolen. I mean, don't get me wrong there. We've got a ton of cookie ones. I don't know who's looked through the list significantly, but there's a ton of cookie based ones, which I consider being a quest line for something like that that is linked to Oliver's character arc whenever we do meet him, which, you know, probably won't be till mid-end or end game. Okay, so now I definitely think we could expand on these, but at least we've got the foundation in here. I can leave Lightfall if I want to, but however, okay, hang on. I don't have to do trapped and I can leave Lightfall if I want to. Yeah, I'm thinking how to word that. Basically, what I want to say is, you know, she doesn't have to be tied to her brother. She doesn't have to give in to her brother's dependence on her because she feels guilty. And her brother can change and transform as a person as well. He doesn't have to be that person he always has been. And once he has become a strong person, that will be when she's free to leave. Alright, so I'm going to look at the F, see what we got here. Just remark, I will survive on my own. I don't need anyone or anything else. I will get bored if I stay in one place for too long. People should not be treasured, don't get attached to people. People should look after themselves, including children. So we thought some fit Fiona here, but I think the one we've got for her is the best, for sure. Because some of these are very, very, almost selfish, really. Like, I'm the right one, which could have worked for Fiona, but because we've given her this whole trapped, being stopped from her exploring sort of theme with Fiona, it only feels right to me to just stick with that one rather than turn her into some other kind of character. Rather than do too much with one character, I like to have a solid theme for a character, a single character, and give other aspects of characters to other future NPCs. Like another NPC in Nightfall could potentially have some of these other ones, like that one, for example. Because I think if you give too many themes to one character, it just ends up a big mishmash then, and then the message that you end up wanting to send to the audience isn't strong enough and doesn't get registered because you've kind of had too many different things going on with one character. One solid theme is perfect, I think. And maybe my brother can survive without me. Alright, so where is it? So, yeah. That's brilliant. So maybe right, my brother can. I have I believe my brother can learn to survive without me. And learn to not be dependent on me forever. Because if we just had, I believe my brother can survive that, it makes it almost seem cold, like she's like, screw you, you can survive without me. But it's more like she believes her brother has it in him to become a better person and a stronger person and overcome his trauma to someone who is dependent. She has confidence in him, and she knows that they'll be better off if they achieve that, both of them. She will, because she can do what she loves, and he will no longer be suffering every single day. Because it sucks if you're dependent on someone, right? Don't encourage people to try their best to overcome that if they are. So I think that's a good arc for Nigel. To become that person, but we can talk about him a bit closer in a sec. I think we've covered most of Fiona that's necessary. I mean, we could think about raising stakes a little bit. We could also assign her a few more behaviours too as well, but you know, that's not essential today. I think the main goal for today is to get all the characters so far a rough kind of character arc outline for them, even if the sheet's not fully complete. As long as we're understanding them right now at basic level, then I think we'll be okay to proceed with the dialogue adjustments. If given a real chance, my brother can survive me. I need to force the issue. Yeah. Okay, so if he... I believe my brother can... He's not alone. Given a chance, I believe my brother can learn to survive with that. Because it is a big if, isn't it? Like, it all depends on how Nigel's character... How it all branches with Nigel. Some endings might involve Nigel not being that person, and others could. My brother can't survive without me. I need to force the issue. Yeah. Okay, so I like what you have, but what if, and learn not to be dependent on me forever is change, and learn to be independent. Yeah, that's probably a little bit better, because... Thanks, I appreciate it, because it's never like perfect, is it, when you get your thoughts down first time, and sometimes it needs a tidy up. And learn to be independent. Well, we put learn twice, so we'll get rid of that too. Learn to survive without me and be independent. Okay. Something definitely has to give Fiona that light bulb moment for sure, because she's certainly not realising that right now, is she? But something at some point will give her that light bulb moment that her brother can. Maybe someone says it to her, or maybe she sees it with her own eyes that Nigel's becoming better, and she's like, oh, who knows? Okay, so Nigel. Alright, so another thing. Their parents. So I looked through the story suggester for notes that I've got saved about Fiona and Nigel, and there was a few suggestions about what happened to their parents. Now we know that Fiona is 12 years old and the war was 17 years ago, so they couldn't have died in the war. Somebody, I think a couple of you, I think Zexing was one of them back in the day when we did that story suggestathon, said that what if Fiona's parents were killed in the last 15 months since the forest started coming to life? They were killed by one of the living beings that came to life. It could work, because it means it was a recent death, which makes sense because of Fiona's age. They couldn't have died in the war. It also could explain why Nigel is so nervous, so right now, like it hasn't like quelled over time. He is as nervous as ever, and it's because that the deaths are recent. You could or even see it as the reason why Fiona's so obsessed with exploring is because she's needing a way to cope with the recent grief as well, and she's almost behaving a bit irrationally because of it, and she's got this like just live in the moment sort of attitude. But I like the idea of having their parents of being killed in the recent timeline since the spell from one of the living things that came to life, because it gives reason for why the people of Lakefall are so scared even more, because they've actually lost loved ones since things have come to life. So it gives reason for why they should be scared. That it makes sense why they'd be scared, and Nigel getting bullied by the fruits. I guess if his own parents got killed by living fruit forest creatures, it would make him more fearful of them as well. And Fiona's brave, so she's able to face people like that head on. And there was another thought that came into mind about why it's a good idea too. But yeah, it just ultimately, it's great to have some NPCs have died from this recent event of the things coming to life, rather than no deaths at all, because it just increases the tension and the severity of what's happening, and it's proving that it is dangerous and it isn't all in their heads. And I don't know if I suggested that, but I like it. It would explain why Nigel is so fearful of the forest. Something out there to his parents from him, and he's scared to explain of happening to his sister. Yeah, as well. That gives a double layer true, because Fiona's going out, and it's like, no, Fiona, our parents died doing that, so you shouldn't do it. And so not only is she 12, the same age he was when he was at his most scared and traumatised, but she's also doing something extremely dangerous. And maybe Fiona thinks they are still alive and is exploring to find them. That adds another layer too. And you know how I was so fond of the idea of having a reason for why Fiona explores, rather than just exploring for the sake of exploring. I always like to have a reason for why they're passionate about something. But that, I like the idea of giving more meaning to why she loves exploring so much, and that could definitely be one. As if there's no plot holes, I definitely want to consider that as well. I like what you have, but I've already read that bit. And I like Vandala's idea too. She doesn't know or hasn't expected their death. Yeah. And because people react to grief in different ways, don't they? To Nigel, he's probably thinking, oh no, they're dead, we got to do all we can to protect ourselves, and he's the fearful one and paranoid one. And Fiona's acted her mindset's the opposite. She's like, they can't be dead, we have to figure out this mystery and sort it out and bring them back, because people are in denial. It's one of the 5 stages of grief, isn't it? Denial. So she could totally be that denial one. And I love the idea of bringing in different behaviours and emotions to this forest disaster. Like, you've got NPCs that are fearful, anxious, you've got the ones that are in denial, you've got the ones that don't believe it at all that it's happening, you've got the ones that are angry, you've got all sorts of people. Nobody's going to feel the same way. So I like that, to show that contrasting behaviour and reactions to the situation. And maybe the reason why Fiona is willing to have Violet delivered to the fruits is because they promised to bring her parents back to life, lying to Fiona. Yeah, that's interesting too. So, yes, I think having the layer of that she wants to find her parents adds to make the whole exploring motive strong for Fiona. But I think in general she should love exploring too, because otherwise, when it becomes clear that her parents actually are dead, it kind of if that was the only reason she'd want to explore, then it's like, well, the character arc's over and there's no need for her to explore now because the parents are dead. But we don't want that. We still want her to have this love for exploring in general as well. But I do like the idea that there's a layer on top of it, and the reason that's for her exploring. Maybe she started exploring because of that, because she wanted to find her parents, but she ended up falling in love with it as a hobby for whatever reason, which we can figure out too. And then Fiona's belief shouldn't be I am trapped. Instead, maybe it should be my parents. I don't want to change it to that extent because I love the character that's trapped from their wanderlust. I think that works out well because I love how we said it could end with the fact that she can realise that she can explore and leave Lakefall in the end, because it gives a potential for a future appearance for her after episode 1 if she does leave Lakefall. Kind of interested to think you can save her from the chaos and the war of the reptiles by letting her escape the town before everything goes to hell. So I think I liked it for that reason, but I don't want to completely change her arc now to kind of fit with looking for the parents. I think the parents bit should be an extra layer on top of it, but maybe not completely change and be the reason for why she's exploring. Well, you can add another layer. Her father was an explorer back in the line of their family. One of her great-grandfathers helped found the human town of Lakefall. Then she found it really appealing to explore too. Yeah. So I think that could be something we go with. Like she begun exploring because she wanted to find her parents, but then she realised she loved exploring as well. So I think we need to figure out why she loves exploring still and why it's so appealing to her, on top of the fact that she's looking for her parents. I'm sure something will come to us, even if it doesn't right now. She wants to follow in her family footsteps. Yeah. Because there'll be history books as well that will mention ancestors, so we can always slot that in somewhere there. And then she has a person in her background that would give her a reason to explore. Yeah, so we'll think about it. That's one. There could be more thoughts to us that come over time as well. But okay, so yes, I was thinking of where I could slit the parents thing in, but I don't know that. Yeah, the parents thing should be the primary stuff going on internally for her. So although we could mention it, I don't want it to become something that's everywhere in this, because as I said earlier, sometimes with characters we want to give a single strong message to one character, rather than have like too many messages going on. But I do like it. I do think it's worth having. I think it works well, the whole looking for the parents thing. So okay. Alright, so we could even have it so that she listened to the village elders when they told her not to go, but since her parents died, she couldn't resist at that point. She resisted until her parents died, and then she went out again against their wishes. So it kind of shows that she is good and not a complete and total rebel. She did listen, even though it was hard for her. But it was too strong, the urge at the point their parents died, because she wanted to see what was out there. But unfortunately, Nigel doesn't react well to it. So we could always do something like that. All my life, the village is out as a light full of Tommy to stay in the forest no matter what, because I'm a child. Must never go into the forest. Yeah, I'll have to think about how to word that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking of putting, unless we think of another way to slide them in somewhere. But yeah, the whole fruits thing, I mean, with the, oh, we'll bring your parents back, I'm not 100% sure we should slot that in too much, because we could be putting too much in. Like, there's too much stuff potentially going on then, and it could sidetrack Fiona's internal conflict with what we've got here. So I think, yeah, that could have been what started it, finding her parents, but then that stops once Fiona realises that she loves it. It's a tough one, because then I'm realising that if that's the case, she already liked exploring in the first place. Yeah. So there's a couple of, I just noticed a plot hole there, but I'll figure it out. Dealing with a parent's house could be something to explore more deeply in later acts. Yeah, I mean, the fact is, her parents are dead. There's not secretly alive, and they can't. I don't know if I want to make them a complete focus, because it's really just what do you call it? A plot device more than anything. A plot device to make Fiona discover a greater passion. But I don't know, because part of me is thinking now that I like the idea of her always being this passionate little girl growing up. I still like this sentence here, but if we make it so that she discovers a passion from the parents thing in the last year, then she wasn't really that much of a Wondos girl growing up. So it kind of waters down the character now. It kind of does, sadly. So I do like it, but I think we got to be careful, because it could completely change Fiona and give her extra motives, and then this whole thing and her relationship with Nigel no longer is the focus then, because at the end of the day, Fiona is just an episode 1 character, and we don't want too much going on. We've got other NPCs to explore. So yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, we'll have the parents be a thing, but we got to be careful it doesn't become the everything for Fiona's arc. So I want to be strict about that, folks. Once we've set on a message and a truth and a sort of theme for a character, which is what we've got here, we stick to that, and we don't go off and end up with 2 or 5 other things. We can have layers. Layers are cool, and I like them, but we won't let them take over and water down the key message we're trying to tell. Is if we fall in love with, if we're like, oh, well, I really like that one, we can just give it to another character, you know. There's been numerous NPCs we can explore themes with. If we want to go for the whole, I want to find my parents arc for a particular character, and there is actually something really juicy going on and all these secrets about the parents, then we can give that to somebody else, another character, give them a motive and a desire to want to find their parents. Because that is quite a cool plot. But we won't give Fiona that and the parent one. And maybe it's the other way around. She thinks her parents are alive because she thinks it's so improbable that her parents would be taken off guard when she wouldn't be. Maybe. But if we are going to have the parents thing, it should probably be mentioned just briefly in passing. I'm still like thinking, because yeah, you know, it should just be an extra reason for why. Like, maybe, for example, if Nigel's like, but why did you go out, you know, and Fiona knows that she's only gone out because she loves exploring, but she just makes the excuse that she's looking for her parents, but really that's just an excuse. I think that maybe, yeah, she uses the parents as an excuse, but it's not the real reason, deep down. Because I don't want to give Fiona multiple desires, not for a character that's only in this segment of the game. I'm reluctant to give characters too many moral stories. Like I said, I was rambling on about it earlier. I don't like to give too many too many truths to one character. That's the reason we have loads of NPCs, so we can give it to different ones, not the same person. Then it just becomes a bit jumbled and messy then. All right, so but 100% of parents should have died recently. And that also means that Fiona inherited the inn from them. But in fact, Nigel probably inherited it, being the older brother. But obviously he couldn't cope. And Fiona naturally just took over out of obligation. So that's probably what happened. It's all very recent. That's all happened in the last year that she's become the innkeeper, and she hasn't settled into the innkeeper life for sure. I like that. In the same way Nigel can't accept that Fiona isn't like himself, Fiona can't accept her parents are different from her, so it mirrors Nigel's flaw. Yeah, I'll have to reread that one so I can fully understand it, because sometimes I do get brain melt, so I can't always absorb everything in the stream, but I'll give it a reread, because you never know, I could reread some of this stuff and be like, actually something like that could fit. You never know. Okay. Right, we'll move on to Nigel now. So, 17 years ago, I was in the war between the humans, reptiles. Okay, this is going to be worded very badly, I'll just tell you this. I'm just going to get it all down, and the tidying up can do after. So I was in the war between the humans and reptiles. I didn't fight, I was scared. I ran into my room and hid under the bed. Now, he was 12 years old, so I couldn't fight. Because I was only 12 years old. Okay, there we go. And this is like a trauma moment for him. So if we want to make it even darker, we can, you know. If we want to really give some really dark moments to Nigel, like ways that could have happened, maybe his parents or the village elders forced him to fight, but he tried but couldn't, and then he ran to his room and hid. Then everybody died. Well, a lot of people died, and he felt really guilty. And this is the source of his fear, and because he feels like a useless human now because he didn't help. And he's you know, that's kind of triggered a lot of his anxiety, because it was such a big event, you know, it was such a horrible thing to have probably lived in, especially as a child. So it just works for Nigel to have that be a real moment in his life that caused him, especially with him being 12 years old, the same age as Fiona is now. But also, Rose, what you were saying about not having too much stuff is super important and valid. Yeah, and I'm for sure some of what you guys have been saying is probably really cool stuff, and I will be reading through the VOD because I always find it helps. I can take things in better. And sometimes I'm like, I re-look at things and I think, you know, that could come in, or, you know, have a purpose in a later point, even with someone else, if not now. But yeah, that just, I get scared of that. I get scared of a character being messy, and I think that very clear and concise message, singular message, I think is key. Especially because it's going to be a very populated world with many people living in it. Lakefall itself will probably have about a dozen NPCs, so there's going to be plenty of themes and stories and desires that can be assigned to the others as well. So sometimes it can be stronger if you find that one NPC's got two desires and it's kind of watering down both of them because you can't solely focus on one. I think it's a better idea to give one of those desires to another NPC and have them both have that singular theme, their individual stories, because then they just become a more clear character, and their motive is more clear to the audience. And it's not watered down. Hi Kindle, how you doing? Have today off work? Oh, awesome. I hope you're having a nice chill one. Thanks for stopping by. And claiming to bring back the dead seems like something for the haunted house at the Capitol. Yeah, there's definitely going to be desires that fit better in future episodes. It all depends on the place that we're in at the time and the setting and the lore in that setting as well. What themes and desires we're gonna focus on, because Lakefall and Everbloom Forest in particular is it's gonna a lot of them are gonna have those similar themes. Fearful NPCs because of a recent war, the threats of the forest. It's all about living in fear and paranoia and being distrustworthy of other people and communities. It's kind of very much that right now. And there'll be little mini stories that kind of connect and come off that main vibe and theme. But as long as there's parallels and connections, that's what we want. We don't want something completely irrelevant, like a character decides to time travel or something when there's not anything that's kind of connecting a theme like that to the episode. But another episode and another setting could completely have something like that for all we know. I'm gonna get the chores done around the house. Awesome. I hope it's not too boring doing that. Sometimes it's nice though to have a tidy house after. And that could give Nigel a relation with the blacksmith, since both could think they're responsible for the other blaming themselves and try to help each other whenever they can. Yeah, for sure, because that would mean that they parallel as well, won't it? Like, they're just completely different. I imagine the blacksmith would be much more of a tough guy than Nigel. Pardon me. But they've definitely still got their internal struggles in the fact that they felt that their equipment wasn't good enough for the people. And that's why they died, and then they've got stuff going on, and it'll be exciting to make them other NPCs too, because whatever sticks out to us, because like you said, there's probably a few desires that are really appealing for this kind of setting, and that at some point we'll probably, whenever we're ready to start brainstorming the other NPCs, whenever the time feels right, we'll probably list the desires that we think are the most fitting and the beliefs and fears, and that can help us. That's what we'll start off with before we even know what the other NPCs look like or what their job is, their livelihood in town. We'll start with the desires and beliefs, and then we decide what job they should have, and whether it should be the innkeeper or the barkeeper. Well, not the innkeeper because that's Nigel, but whether they should be the item shop person, the barkeeper, or someone out, the mayor, or someone else entirely, and then all that other stuff, their appearance and gender, etc., can come after. Okay, so I was in the wall between humans and raptors. I come back as tired as I was scared, ran out, hid under the bed. All right. One year ago, my parents got killed. Not got. I hate the word got. It's not very good. I like something more descriptive usually. So my parents were killed in the Everbloom Forest by something that came to life. Well, that's assuming, you know. We don't know. They just assume they were killed by that. We don't know how. No, their deaths are a mystery. But we think they were killed by something that came to life. Okay, cool. I don't know where, you know, just thought this, before we forget, it's a good idea to just slot that in, even though we can totally make this sound more exciting and better, but we don't want to forget this whole story with the parents being killed at that point. Also, the inn was, well, I inherited the inn. But I struggled to cope. Well, but my struggles to cope led to my sister taking over. And Fiona's like, I think she's just the perfect forbidden fruit character, because she's being given this responsibility and she don't want it. She don't care about the inn. She's just desperate to get out into the forest. And we need to eventually, we don't have to pressure ourselves to think today, but eventually it'll be cool to really think about why Fiona's passionate. I know that we can always say, oh, well, because her grandfather was an explorer or because her parents were killed, but I feel like something even deeper than external people's pasts, and something like really internally in Fiona for why it's passionate to her as well. But we'll think. I think it's good enough now that she likes exploring for now. The ideas that we've had are good as well. Okay, so, and Sexy says, what if as a kid he was really excited about the idea of battle? All the books he'd read made him romanticise war and conflict, like a lot like real world Europeans did back before radio and television showed the actual horror of it. So Nigel was all gung-ho to fight and volunteered, and then when he actually saw someone get attacked and killed by a lizard, his rose-coloured glasses shattered or some such. Interesting. It's an interesting thing to consider that, you know, because funnily enough, I've always imagined Nigel as the scared kid all of his life, but I really do like the idea of the fact that he was maybe different as a little boy and he was confident and brave, and it just got all knocked out of him. It just adds a little bit more sadness factor, doesn't it, to see that contrast in what he was and what he became. Because now he wouldn't dream of fighting, it would be his worst nightmare. So yeah, I do like that difference. So that's definitely something to think about. Yeah, I won't enter it in just yet, but it's definitely something that we'll think about. Okay, so now I believe, so Fiona's is I'm trapped, everything's keeping me, had to give a bit of exploring to run the inn. And let's have a look what we get, because we gave absolutely tons to Nigel. So really the core of what we want here is somebody who really doesn't have confidence in themselves and think that something terrible is going to happen, you know, His anxiety is making them literally just think life is full of fear, so it has to kind of be focused around that, as something terrible's going to happen. I mean, it could be as simple as I believe something terrible's going to happen, but we'll have a look. Because all of these are very Nigel personality-wise, but we need to specifically pick the one that really links to his backstory, that's really been driven into him and made him the person he is. It has to be really important. Needs to be the belief is literally them, you know, and where their message, well, the opposite of their message. I will not survive on my own. Something not just different, that would make him quite a bit more like how Fiona's now. And then the connections between them as 12-year-olds are very similar, aren't they? And it gives him more reason to think what Fiona's doing is bad, because he knows he was like her as a kid, and he knows that all changed one day. So I think that's very cool, actually, like, because it gives him stronger parallels to Fiona when she was that age. The reason why I decided to make him 29 years old in the present day was so he could be Fiona's age when the war happened. So, you know, the connections that are between them both were there. To make him closer in personality to what Fiona is, just gives more strength to the fact, to his belief that Fiona shouldn't be going out into the forest. People should be scared because of what happened in the past. Depends if we want to make it self-focused or people-focused, because we could always word it as I'm scared because of all the terrible things that keep happening. But I like it being people should be scared, because then it puts the focus on Fiona more, because a lot of his concerns come from the fact that he thinks Fiona should be scared, like how he is. You know, so I'm not sure if that's the exact belief we want, but I think we close, because really what we want to get at here is terrible stuff's happened in his past. He's got PTSD, lots of trauma, got strong fear and anxiety within him, and everything he thinks is all about the terrible things that have happened. I don't know whether to put have happened or keep happening. I'm thinking, because it's not like they keep happening. It's only really 2 events that have been terrible. But he believes that those 2 events are going to cause problems in the future, and people should be aware of that. So influenced by what they believe I desire. Nigel basically doesn't feel safe. That's really what it comes down to. He's got a ton of anxiety because he doesn't feel safe and has this feeling inside him that something awful is going to happen all the time. He's probably, he's paranoid. And he's, I like people should be scared because not only does it show that he is scared, it explains why he doesn't connect well with others because they don't think the way he expects them to. Yeah. Because on this mega list, there's a ton of people-focused beliefs, but then there's above it, we've got a lot of I, like self belief, like ones about themselves, and different ways of wording it will fit different characters better. But Nigel definitely strikes me as someone that is thinking people should this, people should that, people, you know, someone who's unhappy about how others are doing things. Whereas other people don't give a damn what other people think or do, they just care what they're like or what they think. All depends on the person. And then there's others that think of it about society as a whole more, in the world and life itself. Alright. So the desire. Now, what was Fiona's desire to explore? So, influenced by the liability. Now, this is what they want and what drives their story. So, what did we put as the desires for Nigel's mega list again? To avoid judgment, to experience the thrill of murder, my goodness. Okay, yeah, I don't think we really sat on a good one for the desire. I think he just wants to feel, well, it's got to be affected by the belief most of all, like Fiona's is. So I'm trapped. She can't explore, but she wants to explore. It's really simple, really. But looking at this, I desire people to be careful, and cautious, right? Like, because that's what he's believing, that they should be scared, but they're not. And it's stressing him out. So he'll be happy as long as people are cautious and doing good. That's all he wants from Fiona, right? For her to stay in and not go off. That's all he wants. That's why he broke down that time. She came back to find Nigel a nervous wreck. Tried to reassure him, but he didn't help. So he just wants people to just not do crazy things that are going to get them killed. He also doesn't want to. He wants people to like protect him too, I guess, in a way. So it's just thinking of the best way to word this one. Okay, so and people, yeah. I think 94 fits best. I desire safety, consistency. I think yours is better. Yeah, it's because sometimes we're going to find the perfect one here on the list, but sometimes it'll need a slight rewording, right? Just so it fits with what we've got going with the NPC. But these can be really good to just get the ideas flowing and to give a bit of a starting point. We don't have to like be rigid and only pick one, you know. So 94, that was a funny one. Okay, so I mean, who knows? I mean, it's random, but maybe at one point he was like literally getting a knife out so he could kill the fruits because he was desperate. He's getting bullied by him, but his courage wouldn't. Even if he really was gonna try to kill him, he'd stop. He wouldn't have the courage to go through with it. So I desire people to keep themselves safe. Why is that underlined? I suppose it's because the sentence isn't connected very well. The hells of formatting text. I'm only putting it like that because then it doesn't have a silly underline thing. people to keep themselves safe. But he wants to feel safe too. I mean, I'm guessing that Nigel's doing the right thing and he's being safe. But I can't imagine that he actually feels safe despite staying in Lakefall. He's probably still an anxious wreck. And somehow I doubt everybody else behaving is gonna make him feel better. I think he'd still feel scared and anxious, and I think that's because it's in him and he's not facing his demons and he's not putting himself out to become that stronger person. So instead of focusing on other people and what they're doing, he should think about himself and how to overcome his fears, right? Pardon me, I've got a cough. Hey Rose, sorry for not being active today, doing the lurking game today. Hope you have a nice evening. Hi Kung, how you doing? Well, thank you for the lurk, I appreciate it. You are fantastic. And I desire people to stop their reckless behaviour. Safety and security before fun and happiness. Yeah, that's very Nigel actually. People to keep themselves safe and stop their reckless behaviour. I can imagine him saying that in a really posh accent. Stop your reckless behaviour. I can't do it though because I don't have a posh voice, but I can picture it in my head. I don't know if it'd be like a spoil sport, like a dictator in a way. They'd be like, you can't have any fun and happiness ever. I think that he's probably a reasonable guy, that he thinks people should do that, but it's just that he's just scared. That's just the emotion that overcomes him. Okay, sorry for off topic. I just thought about a scene with the fruits after they take over the town. You go up to them and they talk about how they conquered the village and showed no mercy to the villagers. But then you go into a house and find a letter reading, these weird little fruits have been showing up the village every day. They take about overthrowing the town. They've been really getting on everyone's nerves. They don't do anything. All they do is get in the way of our work. The annoyance has gotten to the point that we all decide to go to the city for a week or two. Hopefully they'll have gotten bored by the time we get back. I really like the idea of having letters in houses and things. In fact, that's something I kind of want to have quite a bit of, for lore reasons and for like little revealing bits of information, if necessary and relevant, for sure. I'm really fond of that sort of thing, so expect that. But yes, there is Kindled is right, there is going to be a branch where the fruits can take over the town. It's one of the potential endings, but only if certain events have gone a certain way. Not, it's one of 3 endings probably. The others are, well, we talked about that on another stream, and we'll probably talk about it again soon in the near future. But yeah, I'll properly reread that again after stream, Kindle, so I can fully understand the gist of it and the ins and outs of that letter and that. Are you saying an NPC would have written that letter, like to give us sort of insight about a bit about the fruits and the goings on that perhaps we aren't aware of ourselves yet? And surely you mean one of 300 endings? Well, there's probably going to be like, the 2 or 3 key endings most of the time with certain events, but there'll be little intricacies that kind of alter those main endings as well. So it's not like it's rigidly 3 endings. Say if someone gets the 3rd ending and their friend gets the 3rd ending, doesn't mean that 3rd ending will be the same for both, because certain other events they could have done differently. A townsperson, alright, so yeah. But yeah, I like the idea of letters and stuff for numerous things. I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, with the fruits as well, they're bullying Nigel, and how are we going to reveal that as well is another thing. Because there's many ways you can reveal these things through dialogue, if it's like necessary and we need to know it. But if it's optional, letters are always a good way, or anything lying about, bits of information that reveal things. But exploring is always usually an optional thing to do, because not everyone bothers to pick things up and look. But I love the idea of people who do getting rewarded and finding out something that's quite juicy, to give them a bit of to inform them a bit and maybe potentially make them do something a bit different now they know that information. And because the fruits think they took control of the village with their power, but they are so weak that the villagers just got annoyed and left. Yeah, I'll definitely need to reread it properly after stream, so I can usually focus much better and take it all in a bit better then. So if there's ever anything to bring, I mean, I'll save what you've said, and when we get into the nitty gritty with the fruits, and that I might bring it up then and potentially look into it as well. But if you want to expand on it more, we have got the ideas discussion channel in Discord as well, so sometimes that can be a good place to go if you really want to get into depth about an idea. Okay, so okay, so obstacle in the way of their desire. I fear people, well, basically the opposite. I fear that the people, my sister, are gonna, well, I fear, because he's thinking of people, he's scared of people being reckless, but primarily it's his sister that he's really freaking out about. My sister will get herself killed and leave me to suffer on my own. Which, you know, I think that gets to the heart of it all, because the first quest is him asking you to find his sister, so it's pretty obvious that that's his fear. And it's kind of definitely working as an obstacle in the way of that. And influenced by fear, what keeps them stuck where they are? I'm dissatisfied with my life. Okay, because oh damn it, silly big text. I'm always left to manage the inn on my own, and being alone makes me think about all the horrible something along the lines of, yeah, he hates being left to suffer on his own, because suffer on my own. He's scared of losing people, especially his sister, because he hates being on his own, because it gives him too much time to think about the past, right? And it makes him restless and tense and troubled. So I'm thinking something along those lines. Which makes me feel troubled and restless. something like that. I think this is connected decently. I fear change because massive change has been what's led him to feeling unsafe and scared. Yeah, so we got the change in the forest, which is the things coming to life, which has killed his parents. So yeah, he would definitely fear the change. I guess, is it change though? Because ever since he's been young, stuff has been happening when he was a boy. So it's more like it's just Everbloom Forest and Lightfall are just not very safe places in general. And what's happening now is just this. Things coming to life, the change is just something else on top of the already bad things that happen in the war, etc. So I don't know if, I mean, I can see where you're coming from because there has been a change in the forest, but to Nigel it's always been there, and he just generally felt really kind of fearful ever since the war. Like we say, he'd probably be cool if he was more of a excited kid, and you know, a bit like how Fiona was when he was 12 back when this started, but then it just knocked all that out of him, the event did. And his parents being gone is a massive life change. Yeah, that's true, especially because he's being left with the inn. So for sure. Okay, so where would we slot that one? Yeah, I'm trying to think, because if we put I fear change and then we've got and I fear that my sister will get us killed too, we're spreading ourselves too much, and then we end up with two fears. So I mean, I do strongly agree that change is a key thing, but I feel like that's an overarching fear that nearly every citizen of Lakefall fears. To some degree, I think it's good to have there be an overarching fear with them all. Does Fiona fear change? I suppose she doesn't. Maybe that we could group NPCs, and there's a group of them that fear change, and there's a group of them that are more like Fiona and embrace the change. Would you say she embraces change though? Maybe there's a better word, but I feel that could work. We can think of them in groups, and then it's gonna make us have connections with the NPCs. There'll be certain like-minded NPCs in the town that fear the change, and then there's other NPCs that have a different attitude, and then it forms these like communities of people that think differently and ones that are like-minded, and just makes things more interesting then, doesn't it? So yeah, I think that's something to consider. We could maybe make a list of eventually of in groups, like say these are the NPCs that fear change and these are the ones that are for the change, and then we've got all these different attitudes forming then. Because for sure I think that's a general, very overarching one for Nigel, and I think it's definitely true, but his specific one is this, like his character specific one is probably that, seeing as that's very apparent from the dialogue in the scene where we meet him as well. And hi real, maybe all characters fear change, but they see changes happening in different realms. Yeah, because everybody's there'll probably be a handful of Lakefall residents that fear the change along with Nigel, but they've all got different reasons for why they fear the change, right? For Nigel it's because he, like what's written here, but it'll be different for everybody. Everybody's got their own individual stories and fears for that. And fair enough, I think keeping it specific and narrow it to I fear my sister is solid. Yeah, for sure, because his story and everything, his thoughts going on in his head are very motivated by his sister, and that's who he's most dependent on out of everybody. But he's probably still gets very anxious and worried about people in general as well. Okay, so I want you to, and this is the solution to their fear, and this is why this works great, because it's the first quest. So He fears his sister will get herself killed. So this is the solution to the fear: to find my sister and bring her home. That just flows nicely now, because that just so happens to be the first quest, right? So that's kind of what we have to do. We need to make it all link. Okay, so and I think we've done that job well with Fiona as well. So the truth and moral lesson for Nigel, which is the opposite of the lie that believes. So he believes people should be scared because of all the terrible things that have happened. And what did we put? Because we sort of put that there. I believe my brother can learn to survive without me and be independent. Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Lisa Ray, for that raid. I appreciate it. Hi everyone. How are you doing? How was the stream? Hi, the big brain. How was the stream? What did you get up to? Let's give a shout out and see. Oh, you were doing some science and technology too. Tell us what you were up to. Tell us. And hi everyone, hi Sandon, hi Lisa, hi, how are you doing folks? I appreciate you bringing all your community over. We are in the stream at the moment. At the moment, it's what we always do. We're making an RPG. I'm the solo developer, and we're doing a lot of character arc stuff at the moment. We're writing about our characters. It's a very story-driven RPG. That's the gist of it. And we have a website here, folks, if you want to have a peek. Thanks for stopping by. It's lovely to meet you all. Lisa called you cute. I'd really thank you very much. And hi, Fantasia. Thank you so much for that sub. Oh, my goodness. 39 months. That's 1 month away from the big 4-0. I appreciate that, Fantasia. How are you doing? Let's have some hype in chat. That's that amazing, huge sub from Fantasia. Thank you. You have a great vibe. I appreciate the kind words. But it's lovely to meet new people, and I appreciate you bringing your folks over. Women in tech, yeah. So are you making a game as well? Oh, just messing with my Python bot for Twitch. Oh, that's what you was doing. Awesome. That's fab. I'll have to have a peek after. I'll have to have a nosy at that. Yeah, thank you for the hype, Van. But I hope you have an awesome day. And yeah, after stream, I don't blame you if you need to go off and get some food. Make sure, because that's what I always do. I always make sure I get some food down me after a stream. So if you need to head off, feel free to. Certainly deserve it after a stream. But folks, anyone who's curious, we're filling in all this juicy stuff to form our character's character arc. It's been a lot of fun because this is the sort of stuff I like doing loads. Alright, so I'll hang out for a bit. Awesome, yay! But if you've got any questions, folks, feel free to ask. We do have an FAQ section on the website. So most of the main questions are on there and the answers. But Happy New Year as well. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good holes. Which software is this? This is just Google Docs. This is because I always do all my planning on either Google Docs, Google Sheets, or Draw.io. And then I jump into the engine usually once all that's done, because it's all been a lot of planning work lately. We've been really improving upon the scenes and dialogue and quest work we've got so far, because in the beginning this project was very different. In the early days it was very casual and just a bit of fun and very silly, and the story was very disconnected as well in the early days. But I recently started getting really passionate about it, and I've been reworking everything, making sure it all is as awesome as possible and the characters shine. So a lot of the scenes have already been done. We've been working on main quest 1 and 2. So I'm hoping to release the first playable build in the first quarter of the year, though it might go into the second quarter, we'll have to see. But it will have main quest 1 and 2 in it, And a lot of the scene work has already been done. We use RPG Maker, that's the software for the game. But because we've been overhauling everything, a lot of it will have to be redone. So that's kind of the goal at the moment, getting all the new scenes updated. Thank you, yours truly, and Buyer, for the follow. I appreciate it. And Dexy said, so sorry if this is me being obtuse, but finding Fiona solves Nigel's fear, but how does it make him recognise that his belief is flawed, and how does it make him learn the truth? Oh, good point. I'll have to reread that bit. So, his belief is flawed, and how does it make him learn the truth? Right, so that's the thing, isn't it? Because this truth that we've got here, well, for all the characters that we've got, for Carol and Fiona as well, because we've kind of wrote that for Carol, and we've also got one for Fiona. Now, each of their truths don't actually have anything written here on how they get to that point just yet. That's the big mystery. So that is the character arc, and that's up to us really, and how we want to show them that, because that is one thing we don't actually have here. I mean, we could always write an extra line, an extra section where we say the path to how they find the truth, if we want to outline that even roughly, because that we don't have that for anybody. Like this here, we don't have how Carol's going to get to that point. In fact, it's a big question mark, because that is such a journey to go from someone who is so cynical about people to very much the opposite. That is really a huge transformation, and it's going to be the same with Nigel and Fiona. Maybe to a lesser extent, because their stories are going to take place just within a single episode, whereas Carol's is an overarching transformation over the series. But it's still, that is something to think about, the path to the truth and the lesson that they learn. Because I assume it'll be a sequence of events and dialogues that's going to slowly make them come to that. It's not going to just be one big thing or one singular thing that gets said that makes them change, because people's fears and beliefs and that are more deep rooted than that. So I can see it being a sequence of little things that happen between main quest 1 and 6 for Nigel and Fiona, and same with Carol for over the course of the series. So because we've only done main quest 1 and 2 right now, there's a lot of question marks to how Nigel and Fiona are going to come to their truths, but it's something to keep in mind, especially as we start writing main quest 3 as well. I love that you cooperate with the viewers on the development. Yeah, it's really fun to do, because it really helps stop me as well getting too rigid with my ideas and see other perspectives too. It really helps to collaborate for the story driven stuff and the world building. It's really helpful, and I actually like focusing on that kind of thing even more on my streams than the actual game development, because if I was just sitting here doing development, that isn't very interactive, right? So I tend to like having the very discussion based things happening on stream, so that we can figure things out and talk about really cool ideas and directions to take things. So yeah, it is a ton of fun, and it's very, very cool to see what people think and come up with. The game's really wacky and has some really funny characters in it, like a living sentient barrel, and we wouldn't have had that idea ever if it wasn't for the fact that I made this into a community thing, because I would have never have had that idea to have a character like that ever. So we can get really wacky and hilarious, and when it's a community bouncing ideas off each other. Do you know Python? I've heard of it, yours truly, but I'm not really when it comes to code, I'm not I don't really see myself as a techie or codey person. I'm more of just an RPG nerd and geek. He's like passionate about storytelling and all that, and I love the medium of a game for doing something like that, creating a world and a fantasy story, a fantasy world, because games are just great for that, because you've got the visuals, you've got the sound, it's interactive, and especially because this is a branching story as well, and it's just fun. And no, I think maybe I just didn't realise that fear, want, dissatisfaction are related to their narrative function. That's my bad, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I mean, it is a point if that's what you meant, Zexy, about how they're going to come to that conclusion, because we haven't actually specifically stated it, but I kind of see it as that's something we're going to shape over time when we outline the scenes. Like, for example, when we start writing Main Quest 3, we might think, so we need to make something happen that, and I suppose the raising the stakes section might help that. Like, for example, with Carol, you had that idea about Violet stepping in to protect her, and that's a really good way to slowly make Carol realise that other people can be trusted. I mean, it's not enough, it's far from enough, but it's something that small that's happened that's going to slowly make her change. There's going to be a sequence of things that are going to make them transform, and that's like one event of many that could be the start of that. So when we like do things like this, I mean, if we ever did the one where Carol gets kidnapped and the party rescue her, that's kind of another journey into her realising that others can be trusted because they looked out for her and tried to find her. So, yeah, well, it'll be cool to fill in these bits for Nigel and Fiona too, because it might make us come up with some ideas for how they can come to this moral truth and lesson. Because with the stakes, I like to look at the fear and think of something that's really going to stress them out. So for Nigel, my sister will get herself killed and leave me to suffer on my own. Can't really think right now how to raise the stakes, but something might come to me. You were a good speaker, thank you. I appreciate all the kind words, everybody. You're all being so nice. You're all being super nice. Okay, so we'll just pinpoint Nigel's moral truth, and then we'll move on to Violet and the fruits, okay, folks? We've still got an hour of stream, over an hour, so we're good. We got plenty of time. We don't have to get proper detailed about this sheet. We don't have to fill in the current behaviours yet or the stakes part, but I can do that off stream, and I can always do that after, but we'll get this one in because this is important. Okay, so this is what they actually really need. So he thinks that's what he needs, but it isn't. This is what he needs, and it's the opposite of the lie. So the opposite of people should be scared because of all the terrible things that happened. I guess you could say that it's that despite terrible things happening, people can move past their fears, including myself. Or get over their fears. So that's like real character growth, someone who's gonna get over it, right? Which is what we needed. I mean, we kind of need it to be that, because Fiona's is I believe my brother can learn to survive without me and be independent. So this is this guy's sister, and their truths have to connect and link, really, without without Nigel being able to grow as a person and become independent and lose that fear and become the boy he was when he was 12, the confident boy he used to be again, which was Zex's idea, which I really love. Because my idea was he was just always forever a scared little boy since he was born. But I love the idea of him. He used to be confident and like a typical boy who liked to fight and wanted to fight. But it got knocked out of him in the war, and he became scared and he was traumatized, and it just completely destroyed him and turned him into this scared person. But how nice and cute would that be if he like was slowly en route to becoming that person again? And maybe it's not like a drastic transformation. Maybe he's not going to suddenly become brave and like fearless or anything, because that wouldn't be realistic, but he'd take the steps to becoming that so that Fiona could feel like she's not trapped anymore. And she'd be free to leave, and Nigel would tell her, you can. I'm going to try and be better and manage on my own. And Nigel's also a romance option in the game too. So another option, living in fear of the past is no life at all. Yeah, and we can totally add more to this. So and that's a good message. That is, it's a super good moral theme. And I think we always wanted Fiona and Nigel's stories to connect, because they are they're a pair. They come as a pair. So yes, and it might not be 100% all there yet, but I think we've got a good skeleton here for them both. And who knows how he's going to come to that conclusion, but we'll figure it out. I'm just glad that we've decided that that's his character's truth and lesson, because we didn't actually know what they were before this week. So getting it down, it's going to help us have a cohesive story. You know, we're not going to be going into territory that's irrelevant with these characters. The goal will always to stay on track, and everything involving Nigel and everything involving Fiona is going to connect to what's on this sheet from both. Because there's always the worry of going off track otherwise if you don't do something like this early on, because your scene work ends up just it's just all disconnected and there's no purpose. It's just there for the fun of it. So touching. Oh, what you crying at, Bea? Hi Sauter, how you doing? LOL, the raindrops are just slowly trickling in. So many raindrops, Sauter. I'm proud of you. You got so many. You're gonna get even more. I know it. Alright, so what I have been doing is highlighting current behaviours, so we can do that with Nigel as well. But I really do want to move on to the other two characters that we've got. So I'm going to flesh these out further another time or off stream. But if anyone wants to jump in, Zexy or anyone at all, and hear about any thoughts about Fiona and Nigel, feel free to say in there for sure. Because we're moving on now, we haven't entirely finished them. But we got to a point where I think we're okay to stop because we filled in all the key things. But if there's ever the opportunity for more, we can, because I'm sure there's some missing bits and pieces. There's definitely events like the time they met the fruits and when Nigel got bullied by the fruits and how the fruits bully him. There's all sorts of little details that we haven't added yet. So eventually we'll do that though. Okay, so the next character. Copy this. So I'm just copying and pasting Fiona, and I'm going to fill it in with Violet's stuff. So, yeah. We'll have to put Violet's avatar as well. Because before we end today, I really want to have an idea about Violet and the fruits as characters, because they're so key to main quests 1 and 2 that it'll be good to have theirs down as well, so that when we work on the dialogue stuff again in the next streams, we actually understand them better too. Because they're actually more predominant than Fiona and Nigel right now, so it's super important we get them in. But then that's it for a while, because they're the only characters we've got in the game so far. But when we do introduce new NPCs in the future quests, we will add them to this list as well. Oh my goodness, Vagabond Dog, how are you doing? How was the stream? And hi Zava, I was busy over Christmas and New Year, but good to see you again. It's lovely to have you back, Zava. How are things going? Did you have a good Christmas and New Year? Fruit Bully fanfic for sure, yeah. See, there's all these juicy events that we definitely need to flesh out. And I'm sure we'll have a stream at some point where that's a backstory stream where we can really get into the real detail of both Fiona and Nigel's past, and Violet's and the fruits. But the fruits and Nigel link with Fiona. Well, the Fiona and Nigel link with the fruits, but Rose does too. In fact, all 4 characters link very well, which I'm really glad about. I'm glad that the NPCs that we've got in so far actually connect with each other and they know each other. Okay, so let's get Violet's avatar in, because we don't want Violet next to Fiona's picture. So I've got these somewhere. Character assets, that's it. So I'm going to just open and copy and paste Rose's. It's pretty easy to do really, but my PC is getting old now and it takes a long time to open Photoshop for some reason when I right click on an image. I think I'm going to do a fresh reboot at some point, and Rex did buy me an external hard drive for Christmas, so I've got a really easy way to back everything up now, because at the moment I'm just uploading things to a cloud, but it's a pain in the butt because I have to put on a bunch of separate websites because there's no memory. So having an external hard drive now is super good. And let's give Vagabond Dog a shout out as well and see what Vagabond Dog was up to. Super appreciate the love. And hi Riggy, how are you doing? What was this game about? How are things? And how was the rest of your stream on Monday, was it? Hi Chub Cheeks, how are things going? And all good, and gonna bounce, eat my lunch, come back for. Oh yeah, you've probably headed off, and that's understandable because my goodness, when you've streamed, like I was saying earlier, when Lisa raided me, you need to have your foods and that. So for sure. And are these new character sheets? All right, so let's update Zava and Chubb and anyone else coming in what we're doing right now and what we've been working on the last week or so. First of all, we started with a big mega list of NPC ideas. So these ideas are beliefs, desires, fears, reasons they're dissatisfied, and motives, agendas, you know, things that give you a quest idea really, for you to do something for someone. So these 5 things, we all got together and made a massive list, but this is something we can constantly update, folks, so if you have any more, feel free to say and I will add them. But I usually now from this point on add them after stream when I look through the VOD. And that's now made us form these character sheets so that we can really get to understand them better, and it just specifically focuses on beliefs, desires, fears, and all these things, because this stuff is all the internal stuff that's going on in their heads, which is really really the most important things about characters. I mean, their name, their age, their Myers-Briggs personality type, their favourite hobbies, what else have we got? All these list of things you can answer about characters are all really cool stuff that flesh them out. But these things specifically are really key because it helps us get into their heads and understand them better and makes them feel real. Because everybody has thoughts that's happening, and these all connect one after another with each other too. They're all influenced by each other, and ultimately it just helps form the character arc because it starts with a belief that's false, like a really flawed world outlook, that ends in a truth, a moral lesson that's the opposite of what they actually believe. So somebody like Nigel, who is scared, who believes that people should be scared because of all the terrible things that have happened in their village, will eventually come to the conclusion that despite the terrible things that have happened, people can get over their fears and move on from them, including myself. Living in fear of the past is no life at all. And Fiona's, her belief is that she's trapped and everything's keeping her here, and she has to give up her love of exploring to run the inn, and her brother needs her too because he's scared. And her conclusion and moral lesson is, I don't have to be trapped here and give up my love for exploring. If given a chance, I believe my brother can learn to survive without me and be independent. So it's like your character arc growth, basically. And it's made Fiona and Nigel a lot more developed now, and it gives them purpose as well. It's already given them this path, this journey, this internal journey that they need to follow, because really what matters is that internal journey. What's happening, the plot, the external story doesn't matter unless we care about the characters and what's going on inside of them. So it's all really cool to like have this in mind with them now. Yeah, the colour coding, to see how the ideas are linked together. Yeah, lots of emojis too, to get to the gist of what each of them are, quicker and easier. And let's catch up with chat. Speaking of old tech, my laptop is in its death throes. I'm waiting for replacement myself. Yeah, mine still runs okay considering everything, but I'm definitely gonna be, saving up the pennies, that's for sure, for a new machine in the future. And it probably might not be this year, but it'll be nice to sort of think about that eventually. And I'd advise continuing the cloud backups as well as the external. Yeah, because you never know, the hard drive could break and then that would be bad. So it's good to have both. But I must admit the cloud backups are very annoying. But because there's a limit if you have a free account, you see. And me, I'm not paying. Things are going okay. Food, just remembered I put the food in the oven. BRB. Oh, I hope it's not burnt. And this looks like a really good way to plan characters. And would some of the listed beliefs we came up with work better as lessons? Yeah, that's really what the beliefs are. They're like moral lessons. Particularly the ones that are the opposite of the really negative and flawed beliefs. But even the ones that are opposite could be flawed too in some ways. So it all depends, because we matched every single belief with an opposite. So as an example, people are not friends with me because I have nothing, and the opposite is people are only friends with me because they want something. I mean, they're opposites, but someone's moral lesson isn't necessarily that one. It could be a different thing. So I gave opposite just because it's good to see the opposite perspective, but it can also sometimes help form this truth, which is really the end goal. There's always a purpose for having characters and a story to tell. You just don't want them there because for the sake of it, right? No, I don't anyway. I mean, if someone just wants a character for the sake of it, that's fine, but I always like to have a reason for it and have a reason for them. And I think these are really cool stories now. Having this girl who's really spunky and desperate to get out into the world, but she feel like she can't because things are holding her back. That's a very relatable thing, right? And same with Nigel's, which is very different. He's got this anxiety and all this fear within him because he's had a traumatized past, and his character lesson is to move on from it and recover and heal. So they're different and good, and that Carol's is all about feeling excluded from society because of her being a barrel. That's the gist of Carol's, and her lesson is that she can find love, belonging and acceptance and connection and trust with anybody, even those that aren't of barrel kind, humans, flesh bags even. Hers is a character arc growth of someone who's skeptical, hostile and mean, even bully, angry, someone changing to become a person that is just the opposite of that, right? But it's a big saga, and this isn't going to happen overnight with Carol because she's an ongoing character that's in it for the long haul. It will make sense if this happened over the course of an episode, step at a time. That you look at the arc as a whole, and it's like a mountain, isn't it? Really, you look at the tip of the mountain, which is what they're going to become. And then at the bottom end, there's like points that they've got to reach to, and changes over time. But Fiona and Nigel's is more realistic to happen in an episode because they're one episode characters. And do they ever start out with a true belief and then start to believe a lie, like more of a tragic character? That's an interesting thing as well. To think of it from that perspective, because this is specifically character arcs where there aren't flat, because there's some that are flat character arcs where there isn't. Zexion was talking about it earlier. I'm going to have to Google that myself. But then there's that, what you just said, Ziva, too. I'd like to know more about those kinds as well. It makes sense that there could be a thing. But when it comes to beliefs, are any beliefs true? I've got that question as well. Like, what about if someone had the belief of that at the start of the game? They might find that they can't get that with anyone. It makes you wonder, like, is any belief true? Because every belief to some degree could have a lie within it, right? Some of these ones that are the moral lessons are definitely the more positive outlook, that are more inspiring, that's for sure, which is really what is good about storytelling, because it's inspiring to see that journey, positive growth of how they started dissatisfied but became better. But yeah, there's that too. But when it comes to these character arcs, it doesn't necessarily mean every single one is going to complete their character arc. So because this is a branching story with different outcomes, for example with Carol, if you were the bad hero and really were not a good person as a hero, her moral lesson could completely take a different turn. So this what written here is from the perspective of a hero that does the right thing. But this is a game of variables, and some characters might not complete their character arc journey if you go a certain direction. But this is like, if they did complete their character arc journey, this is what it would lead to. Interesting, I didn't know you made opposites for all of them. That's neat. Yeah, I thought I wanted to do it because it's just so interesting to see that opposite perspective, isn't it? Because one really cool thing about opposites as well is to potentially make an NPC that thinks the opposite, so that they can meet and have a dynamic with each other and challenge each other's beliefs. That can be interesting, to have two characters that are like literal opposites with their beliefs. Your story seems complicated, does it? I guess it depends what you think's complicated, because storytelling as a whole has like this real science behind it. Funny enough, science and technology is the category of our stream. But storytelling, I don't know if everybody realises this, but it kind of does have a science behind it. You know, you kind of have to follow some formulas, and it's not, you know, all about just write whatever you want, because at the end of the day you have to do what's necessary, that's proven and tried and tested methods to hook your audience. You can't just do whatever you want or whatever you feel like, because there's no evidence that just doing whatever you want will hook the audience and make them love your story. But everybody that follows a formula will, you know, have a good story. That's a fact. If they do it properly, that is. If they do it effectively. The truth could be tragic in some way. I'm succeeding at a good thing and definitely not undermining myself. Oh wait, no. Yeah, for sure. And you know, these are worded, all these truths are worded in a positive light, but some characters could end very tragically if we decide to raise the stakes and make them get killed, for example, before they complete their character arc. That's what makes people cry in stories, because they loved a character and wanted to see them succeed and become somebody that changed and transformed for the better, but their life got cut short before they did, right? When we think of all the characters that we love in fiction and the ones that died, and we're upset, aren't we? Because because they usually didn't finish their story. That's why. And when we think about why we like them, it's because they were relatable and had all this stuff going on, and it made us like them. Okay, so, and I'll put what I was saying about arcs in the Discord after stream. Awesome, Zexy, that'd be fab. And I agree, the inspiration arcs are where the characters find light at the end of the tunnel are great, and definitely good storytelling technique, and then having some characters unable to complete their arcs and find fulfillment will help it make it seem realistic. Yeah. And because, I mean, at the moment, we've just got the good, we just got this 1 star here, but we've got to make it clear that there could be more than 1. I wish we could make an evil looking star, but I don't know if it's as black and white as some will be bad and some will be good, because sometimes it's just different perspective. Some truths could be different to the first one, but still okay. Just another perspective on the situation. It doesn't have to be that's the good truth and that's the tragic truth. But it's just only natural that it's going to have character arcs are going to end differently, because this is a game with branching paths. So that's straightforward. It's not. Nigel isn't always going to think this at the end of everybody's game. In some playthroughs, Nigel might be dead. So, you know what I mean? It's a game of variables. That's the appeal of creating a branching story game. So in some people's playthroughs, he wouldn't have completed his arc because the choices you made along the way have affected him reaching that ultimate realization. So that's something to consider too, that we will need to consider other outcomes and alternative versions of Nigel's truth. It's kind of, it could be challenging to think of them all in the spur of the moment. I kind of just have the question marks there for now. But I'm definitely seeing this one in the point of view as if you were playing a hero that generally does the right thing and tries to help the characters see good in themselves. And go down the right path, and based on what they observe, yeah. Because I mean, to some degree, you as the hero won't have the power to make a difference to every single NPC's life, because you're just one person at the end of the day. Sometimes the world and society is bigger than that and you can't do anything about it, but there's still going to be those little variables scattered that could have an impact. Like, for example, you letting the fruits live is terrible for Nigel, because he's going to continue to get bullied by them, because we've said the fruits are making his life a misery. So something like that is a choice as simple as keeping the fruits alive is a obstacle in the way of Nigel achieving his full self-worth. But it could also take a different turn. If the fruits were alive, Nigel might stand up for himself and feel he could feel this inner strength that he has no choice to stand up for himself against the fruits. Whereas if they were dead, that's an easy way out for him, and he doesn't have to deal with them anymore, and he doesn't ever get to face that strength head on. So it all depends. It could go either way, but it's interesting. And Zexy says, but if the belief is true and the character grows to believe a lie, I would imagine that it would be something that took place off screen, and what we would show the audience is them coming to terms that they were fooled. Like, I can't imagine ending the arc there and it being satisfying, but I could be wrong. Alright, so. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, character arcs are interesting in themselves because there are always those tragic character arcs, aren't there, sometimes? There's also arcs like someone like Walter White from Breaking Bad, which is the first one I can come up with my head because it was an excellent show and he was an amazing character. But he wasn't an inspirational character. He went down a dark path and it got darker and darker and darker. You know, it never got better. So that's an example of a character arc that is the opposite of this character that believes a lie and comes to a inspiring moral truth. That's someone who's going the opposite way. But those characters can also be absolutely fascinating too, especially as villains, you know, and anti-heroes. So it's definitely interesting to think of multiple directions truths can go, because this truth for Nigel is just one alternative of this false belief. Like this is just your traditional false belief opposite switch, right, which is generally turns out to be the most inspirational. But things going a certain way, I'm gonna have a think about that, because I can't think right now because my brain is melting, but I'm gonna have a good think at some point of alternatives, and it could help potentially for other endings. Because one thing it's so important for me with Raindrop Chronicles is that it's a replayable game. One person's playthrough is going to be different to their friend's playthrough, and it's something you want to see someone do a let's play of or a stream of, because you want to see how they played it differently to you and how that character ended differently to how it did in your playthrough. There's a real appeal to games like that nowadays, rather than your straightforward linear game that everybody has end the same. If I was going to have one feature and I could only pick one feature for Raindrop Chronicles and no other feature ever, it would be branching paths. So I'm so excited to and it doesn't mean we have to be black and white and it has to be a good ending or a bad ending or a tragic ending. It doesn't have to be like that. It could just be different perspectives. We could write one here. I know, can't think right now, but whatever Guffa is, could be some players might think that's a better ending than this one. You know, it's all about perspective. Maybe one ending is that Fiona doesn't leave Lightfall and decides that her brother's more important to her, or you know, it might not be that one, but that's just an example. And some people might love that ending. They might think, yeah, I want the brother and sister to be together. So It's all about that. And hi Rex, how you doing? I've been lurking and enjoying the character discussions. Have you? Do you like it? If we do get very in depth, I feel like we're becoming more of a science and technology stream now, because we get really deep into character psychology in this stream, and I think that can be under the science bracket. So I'm very, very into it. I find it fascinating, and I'm glad Sex has been sending me articles about it too. Because I think it's so important as a writer, a story writer. You kind of gotta, if you want to create a good story, a meaningful story that's going to have lasting impact, and you're ambitious about your story, you want it to be more than just every other story in the world. I recommend you getting really, really into depth about these things. Negative arcs are where a character learns the truth, but it doesn't become better because of it. My understanding is that they still go from lie to truth. That would be interesting. Yeah, as Walter White as an example, I don't know who's watched Breaking Bad here, but I think he's the best example of a negative character arc that I've seen. But I'm trying to think now what his belief and truth was now. I can't think off the top of my head, but I'm sure it'll come to me when I think. But sometimes it's a good idea actually to think of fictional characters that we already know and just roughly write out theirs to see how it's shaped for them, and it can help as a guide. All right, so where were we? Let's copy and paste Violet. There we go, she's there now. Okay, so shall we move on to Violet before we end today and have a chat about her? I think we've talked about the brother and sister for a bit, and I think I'm liking where they're going. We definitely got more to flesh out in terms of everything. There's so much to flesh out with them, specifically the fruits and Nigel being bullied by them. But we'll go back to that another time. Okay, so should we get Violet's profile up on the Law Bible to see what we already know about her? And we're not doing the barrel characters yet on these character arc lists, like Meryl, Elvira, Hank, etc., because they're not present day characters right now. We will obviously do them when it comes to a point in the story where they become really key and their character arcs come full force. But we're focusing specifically on the characters that we know in the present day that are going to have a major impact on the episode 1 Roots and Rumours plot. Okay, so I mean, at some point we might want to do that about the barrels for the sake of it, for funsies, before they come into the game properly, because we just want to. But because we got things to do, we're gonna just focus on these for now. All right. Violet, because her name is Violet now, everybody. She's changed from Rose to Violet. I wanted to keep her name as a flower, of course, because I wanted to keep that theme. But she's got a name because she's going to be a romance option in the game, alongside Carol and other characters. Nigel's another romance option, and I didn't want to be romanceable as Rose because it's creepy, so Violet it is. Right, so we had another, let me get Microsoft Word, not Microsoft Word, where did Microsoft Word come from? I haven't used that in years. Google Docs is the one. I'm I'm looking for damn it, where is it? Here it is. The notes we made on Violet before the new year, that's what I'm looking for. Here we go. Because we decided on some things about her. Okay, so something on Violet's cannot talk. She's animalistic-like in traits. She used to live on a farm. She's got a very humble background, but unfortunately she was turned into a vampire through sorcery. She was just a normal human girl until this. She was turned into a vampire, so she wasn't born a vampire. The law in this game is that people are turned into vampires, and the reason she's become the animalistic person she is, rather than a high level vampire like Triakis's character Daniel, the reason she's become this kind of vampire is because she was consuming the blood of uneducated creatures, like livestock, animal-like creatures, rather than of a higher class of creature, because she didn't want to kill humans or innocent citizens. So absorbing their blood made her become feral and take on animal-like traits and behaviour. And she has this fear. This doesn't necessarily have to be the fear we go with on the sheet. We can change it to a stronger one that works better if we wish. But this is something that we can go off for a guide. Being unable to form deep connections with others due to them not understanding me is something I fear. I also fear others won't trust me and assume I will kill them, leaving me isolated for all eternity. She's a bit of a she wants a place in the world and she wants to be liked. I think that's pretty clear, but it's almost impossible because people fear her because she's this real she comes across as violent and animalistic. And people don't warm to her because of that. Plus, there's a lot of layers with Violet. She's a complicated one because there's someone out there ruining her reputation and all sorts as well, and giving her a bad name. And we had a chat in the ideas discussion about that. Met had a really cool idea that I actually really liked, and I think I want to go with because it's awesome. Where is it? Can't find it. Was it really that long ago? No, it must have been in dialogue discussion. Oh, thanks for the ideas, X, and I'll read that after. Oh, this was it. We figured there'd be lots of wanted posters about Rose scattered about the town and the forest, so that we'll learn about Rose before we actually meet her. I mean Violet. I keep saying Rose. So it's gonna paint her, this wanted poster, as this really terrible menace to society that's a danger, because that's what they believe. But really, Violet is not like that. She's actually quite soft inside, but the only reason she becomes violent is because she's forced because of her hunger for blood. It's like this conflict. She has a hunger for blood, but she tries to fight it because she wants to be liked. That's basically the gist of her character. A vampire that does have to have blood if she has to, but really would rather not. But people don't see this. They don't have a clue that she's this nice person deep down that tries to fight it. They just think this is just a dangerous creature. But there's room for adjustment because we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we want to purposely make Violet look super weak in Main Quest 1 and 2 so that it makes sense that Carol will bully her, because otherwise Carol's looking like a massive idiot for bullying a vampire, because anyone violent would just crush the barrel with their bare hands, and there's Carol dead, never finding a family ever again. But we love the dynamic of Carol being a bully to Rose, because we want to see that eventual growth where there's a change. But Violet really needs to be weak for it to be convincing that Carol would pick on her. And it kind of is like that, sort of like she's very passive and gives in, but we need to go further with it, and we need to not make her violent either, unless she's forced to kill things because she needs to, because of her hunger for blood. Let's catch up with chat anyway. And every romance option that you don't pursue ends up with Axel, lol. That's funny. And which she does fear more that others won't accept her. Well, whoever, in all honesty, whoever's wearing the pink bra will be who Axel's with. All Axel's interested in is the pink bra. That's what he dreams about. And others won't accept her, and she'll assume she'll attack them. Or does she fear that one day she might become so animalistic that she will start to kill people and become the monster they fear? Interesting. Okay, let's read that again. I guess we need to get our thinking caps on of what's the most powerful arc for Violet, don't we? Because one thing I do want to think about is her ultimate moral, her message, her truth as well. Like, what is the purpose of Violet as a character? What is she going to potentially grow into? Because she might not right now be this feral, like, I mean, we're starting off with her having this, like, something like a lowly animal's blood equipped. It'll either be rat's blood or cow's blood or something, because that's what she's consumed. Maybe the livestock would be more fitting, as she was from the farm. So something like cow's blood would be what she has. But you know, her progression, she will get stronger in battle, and she won't always have cow's blood forever. She might have dragon's blood. But what would that do to her if she was to consume a more legendary creature's blood, say, along the journey? Would that change her, or is she forever feral? These are things we need to consider. Is the damage, can the damage be undone, or is she forever feral? Is something to think about too. What would Rose be at the end? What is the dream outcome for, Violet? I'm going to be calling her both Violet and Rose for a long time until it sticks. I like the second one ever so slightly more than the first, yeah. So I think becoming animalistic, she's already, can she get any more animalistic than she already is? That's the question. I suppose more animalistic will be someone who just eats and doesn't have feelings, right? Because she clearly does have feelings and remorse and compassion, because she's avoiding eating, sucking people's blood, you know, she's avoiding it. So clearly she's not bottom of the barrel yet in terms of her, like, she still has that compassion, which I think is very important. So maybe she does fear that. I'd like to think, get in the head of someone like that, because it is interesting to go a bit deeper with Violet. She is one of these characters that I really want to stretch more, because I think she has so much potential. So I want to make sure that this arc that we lay down for her is the best possible, you know, because she has potential. As a character we meet in so early on, that's a romance option. She's a conflicted, interesting character, and we want it to be more than just surface level or typical. We want it to be interesting. What if she was attacked by a feral, dangerous creature early on, like a wolf or a mountain cat, and then she took on those abilities first before attacking livestock? And if she fears that others won't accept her and assume she'll attack them, that's something that's going to be proven correct time and time again. And even if she is healed and able to speak again, she is still a vamp, yeah. So that's true as well. And she just gets really into Melrose, yeah. So the thing about the wolf, or a more advanced creature, for example, is interesting. Though part of me thinks, now if you guys disagree, feel free to say, but part of me thinks that could be cool if that happened later in the timeline rather than before the livestock. Only because maybe we could see Rose take on different traits and less feral traits when that happens. Oh, I don't know. But you get where I'm going? Like, I'm thinking of the perspective of a character that started feral but gradually becomes less feral as the game goes on, if we want to go for that arc for her. But it's out in the open right now. It's up for discussion. Because that is one way we could take it. Someone who goes from low-level vampire to a high-level vampire eventually, and can end up talking at the end. Now, that's a big question mark, but I want to explore and think. But she's a character that could go in a few directions. So this is why I think it's good to talk about, to see what's going to be the most powerful and work best. And whatever it is going to go here, most likely, and be the moral lesson for her. Whereas if she fears becoming the monster everyone thinks she is, that's more internal, more abstract and unpredictable. It makes the character arc something like teaching Violet to have faith in herself. The arc could be, yes, Violet does have self-control to remain the kind of good person she wants to be. Yeah, and you know me, I am into the internal stuff more than the external, because I just think it makes us resonate more with the characters and makes us care. So yeah, I think we kind of, I'm with you there, Zach. So, and getting more shapeshifting abilities could be a cool way to level her up. And is the amount of feralness based on intelligence of the creature or power level of the creature? Yeah, well, I guess like when we think of creatures, what's the absolute bottom? I guess insects and bugs would be. Livestock and that wouldn't be, funnily enough. Like, livestock could be a little bit better. But when I think of epic legendary creatures, I guess dragons and even more legendary creatures than that could be at the top level. We'd have to form a hierarchy or something, because I'm very not 100% certain myself of this right now. But we could form like this pyramid or this ladder, if we wish, of levels of creatures, but if we wanted to go down that road, you know, I mean, she's always going to forever remain a vampire unless the spell gets undone, but that would defeat the point of the character if she wasn't a vampire anymore. She'd be useless in battle as well if she wasn't a vampire as a playable character. So I do like the idea of keeping her that vampire but growing as a vampire and overcoming hurdles as well. Like some of you might not even like the idea of becoming a better vampire that's not feral. Some of you might want it to stay the feral vampire. This is why I want to ask you, chat, what sort of Violet you like the sound of more. Because some people might find the whole character that doesn't speak a really cool character to keep throughout. I find it a really cool character. But it's, let's reread again. So, gaining animal shift powers while also gaining speech could be an interesting symbolism, removing her feral by channeling it to the shapeshift. Unicorns, leviathans, dragons, yeah, they're unicorns for sure. And leviathans, I mean, that's the top of, the top rank of our Raindrop ranks on our channel. And humans are at the bottom, then elves, reptiles and beastkin and fairies are at the top. Oh, out of all the humanoid characters, yeah, that would make sense that fairies would be at the top, I think. Maybe elves could be as well. I'd say elves and fairies are quite legendary. Though for some reason I feel Violet suddenly talking would be scary. It would be weird. And part of me, I mean, I wanted to bring it out as an option because that could totally be something that happened. But I'm not completely in love with the idea myself. But it's like just getting everything on the table, all outcomes, you know. But ultimately, we want a moral truth with this character, I guess. And Zexy kind of has mentioned that a bit. And hi, Morcall, thank you so much for that follow, appreciate it. So that's something to consider and look into as well. And again, his speech would be an interesting, think that an evil hero might prefer the feral vampire. That's true as well, but I think a good hero might think that helping her adapt and able to handle life in a society is a good idea. That's true, and it's good to think of like the branches as well and not get too tied into one singular ending or truth for us. So considering we had that discussion just about 10 minutes ago, so that's something too. Maybe feral in one playthrough but not feral in another. My version of the hierarchy is reptiles, beastkin, humans, fairies and elves. That makes sense as well, I think, Xavier. Sadly, the beast race probably would be at the bottom, which is really the worst because I'm a beast race lover. But that would be definitely how it would be seen, I'd say. Maybe they are all equal. Who knows? I once read reptiles, would they be cold-blooded? What would they be like for a vampire? And I once read fanfiction where main love interest was cursed to never be able to talk or communicate, so I'm 100% happy with Violet never speaking, but if she does gain the option to talk, I think it should be in episode 5 or 6 as the end of character quest. And a good hero might want to help her be less afraid of herself. I also think both good and evil heroes would want her to be powerful and useful. So the evil hero might want her to be less afraid of abilities, but always afraid of the hero. Yeah. So, I mean, some people, like we say, it might not even be a case of good and evil. It might be like what you think is better for Violet. Because some good heroes might think, accept her as she is, as she's, feral. We should leave her like that. That's what nature has done. So, well, it isn't really what nature has done because it's a spell. But some good, heroes who have the best interests, might not, might see the good in keeping her the way she is. But I think that's something to consider. It's a very obvious one, isn't it, that there's two outcomes, one where she ends up speaking and one where she doesn't. And I agree that it should be a end game. These moral themes and truths aren't going to be found until end game, because what is the left for the character otherwise? If they've realised their moral truth mid-game, the character arc's over, they might as well you get killed off or leave the game. So yeah, it'd definitely be something for them. And good hero might want her to find her confidence as part of the team and in that way help her adapt. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to reread all this Violet stuff off stream for sure that you guys are saying, because there's a lot to take in. And that's interesting because I can't figure out a singular truth right now for Violet. I think we need to really make a firm decision on what she is and what is the best way to take this character before we're able to come up with that theme. And it's probably easy to start on one truth and then think of what other truths all form from the branching past. But I know you guys have said a lot, and some of it might help. But I've got to probably reread it to take it in properly. So I'm not when I've not got the brain melt. And I think if a good hero knows that vampirism is from a spell, then that would probably indicate that a person before him isn't who that person really is. Then maybe want to break that spell and give her life back to her. Yeah, I think it's true that a good a hero with a good conscience who wants to do the right thing will probably want her to become a human again, or break the spell, and that would mean she'd no longer be a vampire and then be useless in battle if she's not a vampire anymore. But if it's endgame, it doesn't matter anyway. Like, say if this was right at the end of Rose's character arc in endgame episode, she wouldn't be in the battle anyway at that point, because there's no more battles left. So we could always, if we wanted to go down that route where the spell gets broken, but we would be forced to have it be real endgame if we were going to go for that. So let's think. We got that one, break the spell entirely and she becomes human again. We got become a high level vampire by consuming legendary animal creature blood, and she gets her speech back, but she still remains a vampire. The third is that she's feral forever. And if we go with the feral forever one, then that means that there needs to be growth in a different way internally, with perhaps some of the stuff that was mentioned a little bit earlier. As long as there's internal growth, it's okay with her being feral forever, as long as she's learned something. And we could have it that the game has all three outcomes. And it just depends on what hero you've got and what choices you make, depending on which one it is. So, I mean, I'm going to read everything you've said again, because there might be some things I need to read properly and go over. And there might be some hidden ideas in there that I haven't took in yet. Alright, so that's interesting, really. It's definitely a challenge to think about. I mean, because it's so different to what we were doing at the start. This game used to be improvised, and we always told ourselves we would never plan the ending and we'd go as we go along, but we've gone the opposite of that now. We're really thinking of the character as a whole and planning out a whole outline of their character arcs, which I think is really smart, because it's gonna make every scene they're in, we'll know the outcome for the character and what moral truth they have to learn, or moral truths if we have multiple, and it'll mean that it always stays cohesive and it always makes sense and every scene has meaning, which is really, really important and what we want to do. So I'm way more confident and happier now we're going with the planning route rather than the do it as we go along route. And if the hero is evil and fully, Father Maple betrays the hero and makes Violet his new champion. Yeah. So the thing about Father Maple for sure is what we'd call the I can't think of the word now, but he is the essence of a bad hero. He's like the guardian of the evil hero almost, because the two trees in Lightfall are like opposite morally, aren't they? You've got the Lightfall tree, which is like your good, could be true neutral as well. I suppose he'd be true neutral to good on the scale, and then you got Father Maple that is the opposite end when you start getting the minus points. And those two are definitely one of those would be your guardian, depending on what way you go. And it's flexible, it's changeable, because your hero could have a redemption arc and gain plus points, and then the other tree would take over, or vice versa. But you know that time we had Story Suggest-a-thon and we said that you'll get a little item from either of the trees depending on where your morals go by the end of the episode, and it was going to be like this piece of wood or something that would I need to get up that conversation again, because it was really cool. The idea behind it was, and it would be an item in your inventory that would call the tree. It'd be a way for you to communicate with them. And Father Maple is what we would call daddy as heck. This is a joke, yeah. So yeah, for sure, like Father Maple and Lakefall Tree, they're like background characters almost in episode 1. They're so prominent because the lore behind both of them is going to be significant to the history of Lakefall and the forest, and there's probably going to be tons of books written on them, and we'll have all these books that potentially you can read about them and the history. And they're not going to like be directly tied to the plot significantly, but they are going to be very prominent, especially for the whole moral compass system. And it's awesome. And so yes, yeah, thanks for the talks about Violet, folks. I will be reviewing the chats, and I'll have a think about her, and I'll come to some conclusions next time and fill this out a bit more, because there's a lot to think about with her. And then we got the fruits as well. Let's just get them in before the end, and we'll just think about the fruits as a group. So rather than doing the fruits individually right now, I'm gonna have them in one. If we need to break them up and separate them, fair enough. If we feel they need their individual ones, if it becomes too challenging to do it like as a group. But for now, we'll do it as a group. Now, where are their avatars? Their sprites, should I say. Right, let me get this one. I found a PNG file with all the fruits on, all 5 of them. So that's going to be better because we can get that up then quicker. One sec, folks. Be silly. Okay, so that should work now. There we go. The fruits. So we've got them down now, everybody. Now, this is what we're going to have for the time being. Just these characters. These are the only characters we've met in the present day so far, but eventually this is going to get full with all the NPCs as we meet them. So anything about the fruits that we know about so far that's up for discussion before we end today, that I will, and then off stream I will look over what we've discussed and add to them, just like I will be for Violet. So we know what their want is. That's pretty straightforward. They want to conquer Lakefall. To conquer Lakefall. I mean, I can word that better in a bit, because there is. I want to have it be more detailed than just to conquer Lakefall and take it back from. Oh, hang on, I don't know what I'm thinking. My mind's all jumbled right now with tons of thoughts. Really, they want to conquer Lakefall and kill anyone living there so they can live there as an independent nation. And there's a number of reasons why they could want this so much. The straightforward and obvious one is they are sick of being eaten up and consumed as food. And at the Festival of Lightfall, there are plenty of food festivals. They always have tomato juice and blueberry pie, and all their kin get eaten up by these selfish humans, and they're just sick of it. They want to be the top of the food chain now. They're like, no more of this. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it with these fruits. They want to be top of the food chain. They don't want to be the ones at the bottom, being the ones eaten. We know that the only way they can achieve this, with Main Quest 2 Scene 4, we find out our bads, the only way they can achieve it is to have Rose's blood, vampire blood specifically, so that they can do what they need. There's a big bit of an explanation behind what they need to do to achieve this, but the ultimate outcome is they can do that. They can conquer Lightfall if we've got that vampire blood. So that's why it all links together with Fiona, with give the fruits what they want so they can stop bullying my brother, which is Violet. So all these characters link nicely. The vampire mythology about them being able to turn into animals, is that on the table? Because if that's something vamps can use, I'll have no idea. I'll put it in Discord, but shapeshifting is off the table if it won't work. The only reason why I'm not sure about shapeshifting is because we already have a character that's a druid in the game, that's a playable character. The beast character, the canine wolf, he's sort of he's a human that can turn into a wolverkin, which is a form of werewolf. And I believe because he's a druid, I need to look into that character a bit more, but I know he was kind of a shapeshifter, so I'm kind of not sure if we should make Rose that, simply because then we'd be doing the same story, the same themes with two characters. So that's the only reason, really, just because that sort of story's already taken up. But we'll say, depends. If their stories were distinct and different, then I might think about that. Okay, so protect other living fruit from the people of Lakefall by killing the people of Lakefall. Yeah, that's a good thing to put as well. So, but we could put that in the dissatisfied section, actually. Our kin are constantly being consumed by greedy humans. Met says, now I'm imagining that if the fruits are spared, one goes off to hunt the most terrifying monsters to prove they're above things that are known to be tougher than most humans. Imagine it. Imagine seeing these cute little fruits, Lemon maybe because he's the tough guy, or even Tomato because they're both on the front lines, going to fight a massive beast and actually doing it as well. I mean, funnily enough, we have a sort of mechanic where they do paintings and bring things to life, and those paintings are the ones that kill for them. But there's something really funny and wacky about the fruits doing it themselves as well, I have to say. You know, especially with their paintbrushes as weapons. Imagine the beasts being scared of the paint. Okay. And hi Marco, do you finish the code of the game and only working on the character development for now? Nope, I do it the other way round, Marco. It's about getting the story done first, and then the implementation comes once I know what the story is, and once we've got all the dialogue and flow charts planned up and prototyped, once they're all done, they get implemented, put into the engine in the editor, and then I shape the scenes around that dialogue. And it's really not code focused to the engine I use to make my RPG. It's a very visual engine. So it's all going to be about getting the scenes in. That's first step. Once we're happy, once we're like, yeah, because I've already sort of done a few scenes. But we've recently done a complete expansion and rehaul, so a lot of those scenes will need a redoing, just a touch, once we finish this. But yeah, that's job one, scene work. And then any mechanics, the battle stuff, I work on after I've done the scenes. I'm not even touching the battles until the scene's done. Already attempted that last year. I did a lot of battle stuff and deeply regretted it, because it all just ended up being an unfinished mishmash of things. Bits of battle stuff here and there, bits of scenes, all of it unfinished and very untidy. But it's like a one at a time process now, and I'm not like overdoing it in terms of doing bits of battle, bits of features, bits of scenes, bits of menus, bits of this, because you're going to just end up with a really messy project. Build your base first and then slowly build over it, is how I see it. They could learn to cut even the hardest armour by painting the damage on and making it with the real magic. Interesting for sure. And is the battle system going to be like Final Fantasy or something special? Secret. I haven't talked about the battle system for a while because it's going to have a rehaul, folks. Ever since I decided to do the tall sprites and the new tiled maps, I've been thinking about how to fluidly implement the battle system so that asset-wise, there's not too much work for me to do, because a lot of you are probably aware that the battle system by default has chibi assets, just like the old default versions of the walking sprites, right? But I don't want to have to do tall versions of them as well, because that is a ridiculous amount of asset work. So there's to just quickly summarize it, we'll be using the same sprites for the battle system too as what we got here, and there'll probably be some animation variations, of course, and weapons with them as well. They're tall enough now to look fine with their weapon equipped on those sprites. But I'm not going to talk about the implementation or what it's going to be like yet, because I haven't discussed it with my community yet. On purpose, I haven't, because we're focusing on story stuff for now. But the time will come, and it'll probably be around February, maybe. Expect around February that there will be some battle system streams, because once the scene work is done for Main Quest 1 and 2, it'll be the time then to merge the battles in or make it come together. Merge the battles in with the scenes and the quests and the maps we've already done. But it's not getting touched, absolutely not getting touched until the scene work's done. Because that was a mistake from my first experience when I first begun this project. Too many bits and bobs, different things. As a solo developer, you have to be very smart with how you handle that. It's much easier when there's teams of people, because you can say, you guys work on the battle, you guys work on the story writing, you guys work on the UI, and everybody has departments, right? And it's very easy as a solo developer to spread yourself thin and put yourself in all the roles at one time and just do it all. But it's tough, and usually you end up with a very messy project. That's from experience how I found it when I did it that way anyway. And see you on Friday. Stay safe, Rose, and everyone. Take care, Zexin. Thanks for all your feedback, I appreciate it, and for your thoughts on the characters. It's gonna be fun to get these in, but I think I'd like to work on some dialogue stuff on Friday, everybody. So we probably won't be actively working on this list like we have today and last stream, because I want to move on. We could easily be in this for weeks and weeks, you know, because there's so much to talk about. But I feel like if with your feedback today, chat, and whatever feedback or thoughts you want to get down before we end, I feel like I can get this in now off stream, and we'll have enough information on us to proceed with finalising the dialogue on Friday, and that'll be fun. And then I want to spend the rest of the January getting those scenes really working so cool with our new dialogue and scene expansions that we've done together. So yes, exciting. But yes, keep your eyes peeled, McCaw and everyone else, for the battle system stuff, because the stream will be coming in the coming weeks. February is kind of what I'm gonna say right now for that. And I'm gonna the February month will probably be dedicated to battle and skill stuff. Depending on when in Feb it is. That's kind of the last job, really, the main last job that needs doing before the travel bill comes out. But there's going to be a lot of balancing and testing and menu stuff to do as well. But it's all a step at a time. It's in the Trello page, in all honesty. The Trello is the best place to look when it comes to what the plans are and what the schedule is. So feel free to have a peek. Alright, so what else can we put? Alright. Obstacle in the way of their desire. That is, well, we haven't done the events of the past yet, but I'm assuming their events of the past are going to be something to do with their kin being consumed by greedy humans. And wanting revenge for that. And just a quick mention, the apple, the fruit in the middle, is a little bit different to the other fruits. His desire isn't... He shares the same desire. He wants to live in Lakefall with the fruits, and he wants them to not be treated the way they've been treated, because they have been mistreated. But he wants to go about it in a kinder way. But I'm not thinking about Apple as an individual here. I'm thinking of the fruits as a whole and their mission. Okay. I could end stream here, but I'm not gonna. I want to fill this in more. So, the obstacle in the way of their desire is that they can't do it because they don't have vampire blood. That could be the obvious one. I fear we will not. I fear we will not succeed. Ingredients we need to. Now that's a very what's the word? Poor. It's a very poor fear. I don't like it much. I think we can really go deeper into the fruit sphere here, but that's just the first thought that's kind of an obstacle in the way of it, but I think that can be better. But I'll just stick that in for now. I want you to, they don't have an agenda with us. They're not a character that gives us the quest, but there is a bit of discussion that goes on in scene 4 of Main Quest 2. I'm gonna go over those dialogue boxes and pick out any information I can see. So folks, I'm gonna be really filling out these for both the fruits and Violet between now and Friday's stream. But thanks for the discussion. If anyone has anything more to say about those characters, feel free to, because anything you say I'm going to use as input for filling out these gaps. So it might help assist me if there's anything at all running through your head. I might as well just improve Fiona and Nigel's. I'm happy they're all filled in now, but they're far from full. There's definitely still a lot to do with those characters, but this sheet, this character arcs list, is something we're going to have forever. Whenever we work on dialogue or have character streams, this will always be tabbed up on the side, and things will be consistently added and amended as we get to know the characters better and go on this journey with them. So although it's I'm kind of like, that Nigel's and Fiona's aren't very good right now, they need to be more full and better. That's something that we can smooth out over time. And once they're at a state where it's really cool and we're really happy with the information that's in that, they'll get all of this put in the lore Bible as well. So that'll be fun too when we officially get it put in the lore Bible. But it's a little bit early right now to do that lore Bible stuff. And Violet's lore Bible profile will get updated as well with this new information. But as for every other NPCs and playable character that are in the games, the community characters, etc., you'll just keep your current profile until you get your expanded profile once you enter the game and the game story. Okay, so yes, I'm going to be filling in that information on Friday's stream. We're going to go back into our Draw.io dialogue trees and we're going to finish Main Quest 2, everybody. So I've already got an outline for Main Quest 2. We already did it a few streams ago, so we know what's going to happen, but it's all about filling in those glorious details and making it amazing. So we'll firmly decide on working on that on Friday, because that means progress and we can get the new scenes all put in and all that. So yeah, exciting times. And with information I fill in here, we'll keep consistent on target as well. All right, guys, I'm going to head off. I'm going to go straight away today because my dinner's ready. I'm late, finishing late again. It's a habit lately, finishing after 6. I think it's because I'm starting a bit late. I'm regularly starting a bit late lately. But 2:30 UK time is kind of the time I aim to go live on the half hour. That's kind of when I try. But I've been going live closer to the 0:00 recently. But yeah, if I start late, I tend to go over time so I can get a proper full stream in. Rose, I'll be contacting you soon about something grinned. Oh, a grin? Interesting. I take it's good news then if it's a grin. Otherwise I'd have been like, oh no, what's happened? But thanks for the stream. You're welcome, Van. But yeah, awesome. So folks, any thoughts at all, feel free to pop them in dialogue discussion. I see that Zex has said some stuff in here and some things have been said, so that's all good. But if anyone else wants to join in, feel free to. And I'm going to be working this is going to be my task for between now and the next stream, just finishing the rest of this. So and then I'll go over it early next stream before we start on the last scene. But take care, everybody. I'll see you on Friday. Thank you for hanging out, everybody. You're all awesome. Bye, everyone.